What if the structures we call ancient were not only older than history suggests, but built with knowledge we've yet to comprehend? Stones aligned with uncanny precision, monuments that defy engineering logic, and designs that hint at technologies far beyond our modern reach. These aren't myths. They are real, tangible traces of a forgotten mastery. As we trace the secrets etched into their walls and hidden in their foundations, questions multiply. Who built them? How? And why does their sophistication challenge everything we thought we knew? Let's step closer, piece by piece, and explore the mysteries they guard. The desert sun dips low over the sands of Al Ain, casting long amber shadows across a landscape that has remained largely unchanged for millennia. Amid these rolling dunes and scattered acacia trees lies Hili Archaeological Park, a quiet expanse of history that whispers of a civilization both industrious and enigmatic. Walking through its grounds, one cannot help but notice the meticulous layout of circular tombs, burial mounds, and stone foundations, structures that have withstood the harshest of climates, yet still retain a quiet elegance that hints at careful design and intention. Each stone seems to hold a story, a deliberate choice echoing across thousands of years. Hili is not merely a collection of ruins. It is a window into the Bronze Age oasis settlements of the UAE, dating back more than 4,000 years. Archaeologists have uncovered remains of elaborate tombs, some containing human skeletons, pottery, and beads that speak to both local craftsmanship and far-reaching trade networks. There is evidence that these people were far from isolated, engaged in exchanges with distant regions, connecting the Arabian interior with Mesopotamia and beyond. Yet, even with these findings, questions linger. How did they achieve such precision in their construction? How were these massive stones moved and arranged with such care, without the mechanical tools we take for granted today? The centerpiece of Hili is its circular tombs, remarkable not only for their scale, but also for their alignment. Many appear oriented toward celestial events, sunrises, solstices, or possibly other astronomical markers that hint at sophisticated observation and knowledge. Scholars suggest that these orientations may have served ritual or calendrical purposes, yet the exact reasoning remains elusive. One cannot look upon these structures without sensing a deliberate harmony, a subtle connection to the sky above, as if the builders had a larger understanding of time and the cosmos, now largely lost to us. Among the excavated artifacts, intricately carved stone tools, pottery shards, and jewelry hint at a culture with both practicality and aesthetic sensibility. Yet some elements defy easy explanation. Certain tombs and megalithic arrangements seem almost too precise, too deliberate to belong entirely to a Bronze Age settlement. Could these be early experiments in engineering that surpass what we typically expect of societies from this region and era? Or are we projecting modern assumptions onto a civilization whose ingenuity simply followed a path we do not fully comprehend? Visitors often remark on a palpable stillness that hangs over the park, a silence broken only by the whisper of the wind through the dunes. Standing near the ancient structures, it is difficult not to imagine generations of people arriving here, tending their community, burying their dead, and marking their place in the world with stones that have endured far beyond their lifetimes. And yet, for all we have uncovered, large portions of Hili remain unexplored, either buried beneath shifting sands or hidden in plain sight. The landscape itself seems to guard its secrets, revealing just enough to intrigue, but never fully surrendering its story. Some researchers have even speculated that certain alignments and designs may indicate knowledge lost to history, or a form of sophistication we cannot yet explain. While such theories remain conjectural, they invite reflection. Might there have been techniques, traditions, or understanding of the environment that allowed these ancient people to create structures of enduring significance, skills that vanished with time, leaving only subtle traces behind? Hili Archaeological Park endures as both a testament and a mystery, a place where careful observation meets unanswered questions. Each mound, each stone, each faint outline in the sand provokes contemplation. How much of their world did these people understand, and how much have we yet to discover? In the quiet of the desert, the past lingers, patient and immovable, and the questions it raises are still waiting for those willing to listen. From the quiet sands of the Arabian desert, our journey now shifts across continents to the lush, arid valleys of northern Peru. Here, in the Lambayeque region, rise the Túcume pyramid clusters, an extraordinary complex of more than 26 massive adobe pyramids, stretching across nearly 220 acres. From a distance, the structures appear as undulating terraces, their earthen walls blending seamlessly with the surrounding hills, yet standing as silent monuments to a culture long vanished. Walking among them, one is struck by their sheer scale, the precision of their construction, and the subtle patterns etched into their surfaces, worn but still discernible after centuries. Túcume, sometimes referred to as the City of Pyramids, is part of a landscape that once thrived under the Lambayeque and later the Chimu civilizations. Archaeologists have dated the earliest constructions to around 1000 CE, though some evidence suggests that the site may have been built upon foundations even older. The pyramids were primarily ceremonial, serving as centers for ritual, administration, and burial. Excavations have revealed tombs filled with finely crafted pottery, intricate metalwork, and the remains of high-ranking individuals, all pointing to a sophisticated society deeply attuned to its environment and social hierarchy. Yet even with these discoveries, Túcume continues to puzzle researchers. The sheer number of pyramids, their precise orientation, and the subtle alignments with local rivers and mountain ridges suggest a level of planning that seems astonishing for the time. Some of the structures form geometric patterns that hint at a possible understanding of astronomy or calendrical systems, though definitive explanations remain elusive. Could these alignments have served purely ceremonial purposes, or was there a deeper knowledge encoded in their layout, knowledge now lost to history? What makes Túcume especially intriguing is the construction method itself. Unlike stone pyramids found elsewhere in the Americas, these are built from adobe, a mixture of clay, sand, and straw, meticulously layered to create structures that rise tens of meters into the sky. Despite being composed of fragile materials, they have endured earthquakes, heavy rains, and centuries of natural erosion. How did the builders ensure such resilience? Was it purely through practical knowledge of material science, or might there have been techniques and methods that remain unknown to us today? Among the more mysterious aspects are the intricate networks of causeways and ceremonial plazas that interconnect the pyramids. These pathways suggest a city designed not only for function, but for movement, processions, and perhaps ritualistic journeys that guided participants through a carefully orchestrated experience. Some researchers have speculated that the arrangement of pyramids and plazas mirrors celestial patterns or reflects sacred cosmologies. Others propose that certain pyramids may have served as repositories of knowledge, containing symbolic or spiritual messages encoded in their very construction. Túcume's enduring mystery is compounded by the lack of written records. Unlike the Maya or Aztec civilizations, which left behind extensive codices, the people of Túcume left only artifacts and architecture. The stones and adobe alone must tell the story. Yet interpreting their language requires more than excavation. It demands an understanding of symbolism, culture, and belief systems that are only partially reconstructed through archaeology. Some tombs contained unexpected artifacts, objects that suggest trade or contact with distant regions, raising further questions about the scope of their reach and influence. As the sun sets over the Lambayeque Valley, casting long shadows across the terraces, the pyramids seem to hum with a silent, persistent presence. Standing atop one of the larger structures, the viewer is confronted not just by the ingenuity of human construction, but by the enduring enigma of intention. What motivated these massive undertakings? How much of their design was practical, and how much was inspired by belief, ritual, or understanding that we no longer grasp? The adobe walls, worn yet unyielding, stand as guardians of knowledge that is tantalizingly close, yet frustratingly out of reach. Much like the ancient structures of Hili in the UAE, Túcume challenges our assumptions about the capabilities of past civilizations. Here, across a world away, we see the echoes of human ambition, creativity, and possibly knowledge that stretches beyond the boundaries of what we understand today. And yet, despite decades of excavation and study, the pyramids retain their quiet authority, leaving us with more questions than answers. What has been preserved in these earthworks that we are still too limited to decode? How many layers of meaning remain buried beneath the adobe, waiting for those patient enough to uncover them? In the shadow of these monumental terraces, the past feels simultaneously tangible and unreachable, a mystery that invites us to pause, observe, and wonder. From the sun-baked terraces of Peru, our journey now returns to the rugged, windswept isles of the North Atlantic. Far from the fertile valleys and desert sands, on the remote island of Mousa in Scotland's Shetlands, rises a structure that seems both impossibly solitary and remarkably intact. The Broch of Mousa pierces the northern sky, a circular stone tower standing nearly 13 meters tall, its thick walls a testament to human endurance and ingenuity. Surrounded by crashing waves, jagged cliffs, and the ceaseless wind of the northern seas, the Broch presents itself not merely as a ruin, but as a living silhouette of the Iron Age, whispering secrets across 2 millennia. Constructed sometime between 100 BCE and 100 CE, the Broch of Mousa is widely regarded as the best preserved example of its kind, a type of dry stone tower unique to northern Scotland. Unlike many ancient structures, it has endured centuries of storms, erosion, and isolation, remaining remarkably intact. Its walls, more than 5 meters thick at the base, taper gracefully toward the top, enclosing a narrow interior staircase that spirals upward in perfect precision. The architecture is both practical and enigmatic. Scholars suggest brochs may have served as defensive structures, fortified dwellings, or even symbols of local power, yet no written records exist to clarify their purpose. Stepping closer, one cannot help but notice the meticulous craftsmanship of the dry stone construction. Each stone is carefully placed without mortar, relying on sheer weight and alignment for stability. The design creates a tension between simplicity and sophistication, a delicate balance that has allowed the tower to withstand centuries of relentless weather. But how, exactly, did Iron Age builders achieve such enduring precision with tools so rudimentary compared to our modern standards? The answer remains tantalizingly out of reach, hinting at skills honed over generations, perhaps even a local tradition of engineering knowledge lost to time. The Broch of Mousa is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a broader phenomenon, a series of similar towers scattered across the northern Scottish islands. Yet Mousa's structure is exceptional, rising higher and standing more complete than any other known broch. Its design contains architectural features whose purposes invite speculation. Narrow, tall windows provide both light and vantage points, while the spiral staircases embedded within the walls suggest careful attention to defense or surveillance. Some researchers propose that the broch functioned as a communal refuge, a place where the community could retreat during times of conflict, while others suggest it may have been primarily symbolic, a demonstration of strength or status. Intriguingly, the broch's location on an isolated island raises further questions. Mousa, though rich in natural resources like fish and seabirds, would have been difficult to access and sustain over long periods. Why place such an imposing structure here? Was it a permanent settlement or a seasonal stronghold? Could its isolation have been intentional, designed to protect inhabitants from rival clans or to assert dominance over the surrounding waters? Some theorists even suggest that the Broch's position aligns with certain solar or lunar events, hinting at a deeper connection to celestial observation, though such claims remain speculative. Inside, the Broch feels almost otherworldly. The interior is narrow, echoing with the wind that funnels through the tower's entrance. The spiral staircase climbs in a precise, almost hypnotic rhythm, while small chambers embedded in the walls suggest storage, living spaces, or defensive alcoves. Despite its apparent purpose as a fortified structure, no evidence points to violent conflict having occurred within its walls. Instead, the Broch exudes a quiet, enduring presence, a monument to planning, resilience, and perhaps the social complexity of a society whose stories were never recorded. Outside, the landscape mirrors the Broch's austere beauty. The surrounding cliffs drop sharply into the sea, waves pounding relentlessly against the rocky shore. From this vantage, the tower is both sentinel and mystery, a solitary figure watching over an unforgiving environment. Visitors often report a profound sense of connection, as if the Broch embodies a dialogue between humans and nature, past and present. Its endurance challenges modern assumptions about the limits of pre-modern construction and raises the question, how much knowledge, skill, and understanding did these builders possess that has since been lost? Some researchers have posited that Brochs, including Mousa, may have been part of a network of towers serving as visual or communication points across the Northern Isles. Signal fires, line-of-sight observation, and carefully timed movements may have linked these structures in ways that facilitated both defense and social cohesion. Others suggest that Brochs may have carried symbolic or ritual significance, their circular forms reflecting beliefs about cycles, protection, or cosmology. Without written records, the truth remains tantalizingly elusive, leaving ample room for interpretation and for the imagination to wander. The Broch of Mousa, in its quiet defiance of time, reminds us that ancient ingenuity is not always fully understood through mere measurements or excavation. Its very existence poses questions about human ambition, adaptability, and the unseen knowledge of the past. Much like the adobe terraces of Túcume or the circular tombs of Hili, Mousa challenges our assumptions about the sophistication of ancient societies and the extent to which they mastered techniques that we have yet to fully appreciate. Standing upon the rocky shores, watching the Atlantic swell and break, one cannot help but wonder, what secrets lie embedded in its walls, in the spaces between stones, and in the mindsets of those who built it? How much has been preserved, intentionally or otherwise, and how much will remain beyond our grasp forever? The Broch stands, resolute and enigmatic, a reminder that human history is not only written in books or artifacts, but also in structures that endure, silently posing questions across the centuries. It invites us to pause, to observe, and to ponder. What knowledge, what understanding of architecture, society, and survival lies hidden here, waiting for a patient and perceptive observer to uncover? Even as we study, measure, and theorize, Mousa maintains its quiet authority, a sentinel of the past whose mysteries remain unresolved. From the windswept cliffs of Scotland, where the Broch of Mousa stands as a testament to Iron Age ingenuity, our journey now turns southward to the rolling hills and fertile plains of the Lisbon district in Portugal. Here, on a gentle rise overlooking the Tagus Valley, lie the remains of the Zambujal fortified complex, a sprawling settlement whose origins stretch back to the Chalcolithic period, nearly 4,000 years ago. Approaching the site, one is immediately struck by the scale and organization of its defenses. Massive stone walls encircle the plateau, punctuated by bastions and gateways whose purpose and construction continue to intrigue archaeologists to this day. Zambujal, or Villanova de São Pedro as it is sometimes called, is considered one of the most important prehistoric fortified settlements in the Iberian Peninsula. Excavations have revealed concentric walls, fortified terraces, and what appear to be dwellings arranged in deliberate patterns, suggesting a level of urban planning that challenges assumptions about Bronze Age societies in the region. Archaeologists have uncovered pottery, tools, and ornaments indicative of a complex community engaged in metallurgy, trade, and agriculture. Yet even with these tangible artifacts, the settlement retains an air of enigma, as though each stone has been placed to conceal as much as it reveals. The fortifications themselves are remarkable. Constructed from large limestone blocks, carefully fitted without mortar, the walls rise in multiple layers, with bastions projecting outward to create defensive angles that hint at advanced understanding of both strategy and architecture. How did these communities achieve such precision using only rudimentary tools, and why devote so much effort to constructing defenses on a hill that, while elevated, does not dominate the surrounding landscape in an obvious strategic way? Some scholars argue the fortifications were primarily practical, designed to protect against rival groups or raiders. Others suggest that they were symbolic, signaling the community's wealth, influence, or spiritual connection to the land. Within the walls, excavators have uncovered evidence of social and economic sophistication. Streets, workshops, and storage facilities indicate a society capable of coordinated planning, resource management, and craft specialization. Metalworking appears to have been particularly important, with remnants of copper and tin artifacts suggesting both local production and long-distance trade. Yet there are elements that remain puzzling. Some structures appear over-engineered for their apparent function, while certain alignments and orientations of buildings hint at purposes we do not fully understand. Could these have been ceremonial spaces, observatories, or coded expressions of social hierarchy or cosmology? Zambujal also presents mysteries that challenge conventional timelines. Some of the fortifications are constructed with an exacting skill that seems advanced for the Chalcolithic and early Bronze Age periods. The concentric layout, terraces, and carefully leveled platforms suggest knowledge of engineering and geometry that is difficult to reconcile with what is typically expected from communities of this era. Were these techniques born purely of empirical experimentation over generations? Or did they draw upon a body of knowledge now lost to time? And what drove the community to invest so heavily in their construction? Fear, prestige, or something we cannot yet name? The site's location adds another layer of intrigue. Perched on a plateau, it offers sweeping views of the surrounding landscape, yet it is also hidden in certain directions, shielded by natural slopes and terraces. The placement appears deliberate, almost as if designed for both surveillance and concealment. Some researchers have speculated that astronomical considerations may have influenced the layout, with certain alignments corresponding to solar events or seasonal changes. Whether intentional or coincidental, these patterns add to the sense that Zambujal's builders were acutely aware of the rhythms of the natural world, weaving them into the very fabric of their settlement. As one walks through the remains today, the scale of human endeavor becomes tangible. Stones worn azimuth by centuries of wind and rain still bear traces of careful shaping and placement. Terraces that once supported homes, workshops, or communal spaces are still discernible, hinting at lives organized around social structure, labor, and ritual. Yet, for all the evidence of sophistication, there is an unsettling quiet about the site. Unlike more famous megalithic complexes, Zambujal offers no monumental carvings or inscriptions to guide interpretation. The story of its people must be pieced together from fragments, pottery shards, post holes, and soil layers, each raising as many questions as it answers. Some theorists have gone further, suggesting that the fortifications and terraces may encode knowledge or beliefs that are now lost. Could the concentric walls reflect a symbolic cosmology or a method of social organization that transcended mere defense? Were the builders experimenting with architectural techniques that would not appear elsewhere for centuries? While such ideas remain speculative, they underscore a recurring theme in the study of ancient structures, that human societies often achieved levels of planning, precision, and insight that challenge our assumptions about their capabilities. Standing on the plateau at Zambujal, gazing across the Tagus Valley, one is struck by a profound sense of continuity and mystery. The stones speak of ambition, skill, and perhaps knowledge that we are only beginning to glimpse. Much like the Broch of Mousa in the wind-swept north, or the pyramids of Túcume far across the ocean, Zambujal reminds us that the past often contains surprises that defy expectation. And yet, despite centuries of study, much remains hidden, buried beneath the earth, obscured by time, or encoded in choices we have yet to interpret. As the light fades and shadows stretch across the terraces, the fortified complex retains its quiet authority. It challenges us to consider not only what was built, but why, and what understanding has been lost with the passage of millennia. How many lessons, patterns, and insights remain embedded in these stones, waiting for those patient enough to uncover them? Zambujal endures as a puzzle, an invitation to wonder, and a reminder that human history is as much about questions as it is about answers. From the fortified terraces of Zambujal, where stone walls guard centuries of unanswered questions, our journey now turns eastward to the arid landscapes of western India. Here, on the island of Kadir in the arid Rann of Kutch, lie the remains of Dholavira, one of the most remarkable settlements of the ancient Indus Valley civilization. Unlike the monumental pyramids of Peru or the dry stone towers of Scotland, Dholavira is known not for soaring heights, but for its ingenuity in managing one of humanity's most precious resources: water. Walking across its sun-baked ruins, one cannot help but notice the intricate network of reservoirs, channels, and stepwells, a system that speaks of planning, foresight, and knowledge that seems almost extraordinary for a city dating back more than 4,500 years. Dholavira is exceptional in many ways. While much of the Indus Valley civilization has been studied in places like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, Dholavira stands out for the sophistication and scale of its water management. The city was built on a series of elevated terraces, each linked to channels that collected and stored monsoon rainwater. Massive reservoirs, lined with precisely cut stones and carefully leveled to prevent leakage, indicate an understanding of hydraulics that remains astonishing even by modern standards. How did the people of Dholavira achieve such precision without the surveying instruments we take for granted today? The engineering is seamless, yet enigmatic, leaving observers to wonder about the knowledge and experience that informed its design. Archaeologists have uncovered 3 large reservoirs, along with dozens of smaller channels and stepwells, suggesting that water was not only a necessity, but also a focal point of urban planning and social organization. These structures were meticulously integrated with the city's streets, gates, and dwellings, highlighting a society that could anticipate scarcity, adapt to seasonal extremes, and perhaps even coordinate communal labor on an impressive scale. But questions persist. How did the builders calculate the precise volume needed for each reservoir? Were the structures simply utilitarian, or did they also carry symbolic or ritual significance, reflecting a worldview in which water and survival were intertwined with spiritual practice? The scale of the system raises further intrigue. The reservoirs were capable of capturing enough water to sustain a large urban population through long dry periods, a feat that implies careful observation of climate patterns, rainfall, and seasonal cycles. Some scholars suggest that the Indus engineers may have possessed empirical knowledge equivalent to what we now describe as hydrology, developed entirely through observation and experience over generations. Yet other features hint at even deeper sophistication. Channels carved with exacting gradients, retention walls designed to minimize erosion, and overlapping layers of reservoirs that seem to reflect a strategic approach to both storage and distribution. Could this have been an early form of urban planning, combining practical engineering with social organization in a way that was ahead of its time? The reservoirs also present elements that remain mysterious. Certain channels are aligned with unusual precision, leading to speculation that they may have been used to regulate flow according to more than just rainfall, perhaps even responding to tidal influence or seasonal shifts. Some structures appear over-engineered for their apparent function, as if the builders anticipated challenges that we no longer fully understand. How much of this design was empirical, and how much might have been informed by principles that were lost to history? Were these features purely functional, or did they encode knowledge about environmental management that few other civilizations had mastered? Beyond their practical purpose, the reservoirs also reflect the priorities of a society capable of monumental organization and long-term planning. Dholavira's streets, gates, and public spaces were laid out in precise proportions, suggesting both aesthetic sensibility and administrative control. The reservoirs fit seamlessly into this urban grid, serving not only survival, but also community cohesion. Yet, unlike other ancient civilizations that inscribed their knowledge in texts or codices, Dholavira's engineers left no written explanation. The city's water management survives only in stone, channels, and the subtle contours of the land itself. Interpreting these remnants requires both technical understanding and imagination, allowing the mystery of intention to persist alongside the clarity of function. Standing amidst the partially restored reservoirs today, one can almost hear the echoes of ancient life, the murmur of water in channels, the rhythmic labor of workers filling cisterns, the quiet deliberation of planners calculating gradients and storage. The arid landscape stretches beyond the city, a reminder that survival here demanded ingenuity, foresight, and cooperation. Yet for all the evidence of sophistication, the system still holds secrets. Why was Dholavira chosen as the site for such elaborate reservoirs? Were they designed to manage only the immediate water needs of the city, or did they serve a wider strategic or ritual purpose? And how much of the knowledge required to build and maintain them has been irrevocably lost? Much like the stone terraces of Zambujal or the towers of Mousa, Dholavira challenges our assumptions about ancient civilizations. Here, across the deserts of Kutch, we encounter a people who shaped their environment with meticulous skill, yet whose methods remain partially obscured by time. The reservoirs endure as silent testaments to human ingenuity, inviting reflection on what it takes to survive, thrive, and organize a complex society in a harsh landscape. And yet, despite centuries of study, mysteries linger. How much did the builders understand about hydraulics, planning, and social coordination that we have yet to decode? What hidden lessons remain embedded in these stones and channels, waiting for the curious and patient observer to uncover? Dholavira's reservoirs are more than functional relics. They are enduring symbols of adaptation, intelligence, and the delicate balance between necessity and creativity. In their quiet, methodical design, they ask us to consider the capacity of humans to anticipate, measure, and shape their world. And as the arid winds sweep across the plains, carrying dust and silence alike, one is left to wonder, what other secrets of survival, engineering, and ancient understanding remain hidden here, beneath the earth and water, beyond the reach of our modern eyes? From the arid plains of Dholavira, where human ingenuity shaped water into life-sustaining networks, our exploration now leads us northward, to to the foothills of the Zaravshan River in what is now western Tajikistan. Here lies Sarazm, one of the earliest urban settlements in Central Asia, its ruins spread across low hills and terraces like fragments of a once thriving civilization. Walking among its remnants, one is immediately struck by the organization of space. Clusters of mud brick houses, elevated platforms, and enclosures that suggest deliberate planning. The structures appear both functional and ceremonial, leaving a quiet but persistent impression that these were more than ordinary dwellings. They were the heart of a culture that thrived over 5,000 years ago. Sarazm dates back to the 4th millennium BCE, making it contemporary with the late Neolithic and early Bronze Age cultures of Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley. Archaeological evidence reveals that its inhabitants were skilled metallurgists and traders, crafting tools from copper and bronze and exchanging goods across great distances. Yet it is the architecture itself that captivates the imagination. The settlement is composed of carefully arranged compounds, some fortified, others open and communal, suggesting an understanding of both defense and social hierarchy. The buildings are not monumental in scale, yet their precision and consistency hint at planning beyond mere survival, a conscious attempt to shape a lasting urban environment. One of the most striking features of Sarazm is the presence of raised platforms and terraces, often constructed with layers of clay and stone to provide stability on the uneven landscape. These platforms may have supported dwellings, workshops, or communal spaces, but their exact purpose remains elusive. Why were certain structures elevated while others were left at ground level? Could these platforms have had ceremonial significance, or were they purely practical solutions to environmental challenges such as flooding or soil erosion? Archaeologists continue to debate their function, highlighting how little we truly understand about the daily life and priorities of this early society. The fortified sectors of Sarazm are equally intriguing. Some enclosures are bounded by thick walls, suggesting defensive needs, yet there is little evidence of sustained conflict. Were these walls primarily protective, or were they symbolic, marking status, sacred space, or administrative boundaries? The presence of gateways and carefully planned entrances hints at controlled access, implying social organization sophisticated enough to require regulation of movement within the settlement. And yet, the exact motivations behind this architecture remain unanswered, leaving room for speculation about the beliefs and strategies of Sarazm's inhabitants. Equally fascinating is the evidence of trade and cultural exchange. Artifacts recovered from Sarazm include ceramics with stylistic influences from distant regions, copper and bronze tools, and ornamental objects that suggest long-range interaction. The architecture itself may reflect these broader connections. Some scholars propose that certain building orientations and alignments correspond to solar or lunar events, hinting at cosmological knowledge embedded in urban planning. Were the designers of Sarazm incorporating celestial observations into the layout of their city? And if so, why? What principles guided the careful positioning of platforms, streets, and enclosures? Walking among the ruins today, the faint outlines of walls and terraces create a sense of rhythm and order, a whisper of human activity preserved in the landscape. The settlement's plan appears coherent, almost intentional, yet the logic behind it remains partially obscured by time. How did the inhabitants coordinate labor, materials, and social organization to create a city of this scale? And how did they sustain it in an environment that was both challenging and unpredictable, dependent on river water and seasonal rains? The answers are only partially visible in the archaeological record, leaving room for wonder about the sophistication of their knowledge. Some researchers have even suggested that Sarazm may have played a role as a hub for technological and cultural innovation in Central Asia. The combination of metallurgy, urban planning, and trade suggests a society capable of complex problem-solving and long-term vision. Yet other aspects of the settlement raise deeper questions. Certain structures appear unusually precise or over-engineered, while the rationale behind their placement is not immediately clear. Could these be indications of knowledge or practices that have been lost, or do they reflect a pragmatic society whose ingenuity we only partially comprehend? Beyond the functional, Sarazm also evokes a sense of ritual and social meaning. Certain enclosures may have been used for ceremonies or communal gatherings, while others were likely private or administrative spaces. The careful layering of walls, platforms, and pathways suggests a city in which every stone had a purpose, yet the purpose itself remains mysterious. Unlike civilizations that left written records, Sarazm's story survives only through the arrangement of space, the artifacts within, and the subtle traces of human activity etched into the landscape. As the sun sets over the Zarafshan hills, the ruins of Sarazm take on a haunting beauty. The terraces and walls, partially eroded yet enduring, speak of human ambition, adaptation, and creativity. And yet, for all we have learned through excavation, much remains unknown. How did the builders envision their city, and how much knowledge of engineering, social organization, or ritual practice has been lost? What subtle lessons remain embedded in these architectural choices, waiting for those patient enough to observe and interpret? Sarazm challenges our assumptions about early urban life, reminding us that even societies without written records could achieve remarkable complexity. Its architectural remains are both a testament to ingenuity and a puzzle that continues to defy full explanation. Like the reservoirs of Dholavira, the fortified walls of Zambujal, or the solitary towers of Mousa, Sarazm invites reflection, observation, and wonder. And in the quiet of the ancient terraces, where the wind carries echoes of lives long past, one is left to ponder. What hidden knowledge, what understanding of community, environment, and human ambition remains buried here beyond the reach of our modern eyes? From the sprawling terraces of Sarazm, where urban planning and ingenuity hint at early civilization's mastery over both environment and society, we now turn to the misty hills of Anglesey, off the northwest coast of Wales. Here lies Bryn Celli, a passage tomb that rises from a gentle mound, its circular form both modest and enigmatic. Walking along the grassy knoll, the tomb seems unassuming at first, yet its alignment, construction, and interior space suggest a sophistication that continues to intrigue archaeologists and visitors alike. In the quiet of the landscape, the air carries a sense of reverence, as if the mound itself guards stories from a distant past. Bryn Celli dates to around 3000 BCE, placing it in the late Neolithic, a period when communities across Britain were experimenting with monumental constructions and ceremonial sites. Its name, meaning mound in the dark grove, evokes the mystery surrounding its purpose and the landscape in which it resides. Excavations have revealed a narrow passage leading to a small, circular chamber, carefully built from massive stones fitted with precision. The craftsmanship is striking. The passage walls are constructed to exact tolerances, the chamber stones shaped to create a harmonious and enclosed space, and the mound itself carefully built to cover and protect the tomb beneath. One of the most compelling features of Bryn Celli is its alignment. Each year, at the summer solstice, sunlight penetrates the passage and illuminates the back wall of the chamber. The effect is fleeting but precise, revealing an intentional design that marks the turning of the seasons. How did Neolithic builders, with no modern instruments, determine this alignment? Was it a purely ritualistic gesture, a way of marking agricultural cycles, or did it serve a symbolic function beyond our understanding? The solstice illumination transforms the tomb into a cosmic calendar, connecting the human and celestial in a way that evokes awe and curiosity. Within the chamber, excavations have uncovered cremated human remains, flint tools, and carved stones, evidence of both funerary practice and ceremonial significance, yet the tomb's mysteries extend beyond its contents. The passage itself is unusually narrow, requiring those who enter to stoop low, a physical act that may have enhanced the sense of transition from the outside world into a sacred space. Could the builders have intended this spatial experience to mirror a journey? Into death, into the earth, or into another form of awareness? The combination of physical architecture and environmental alignment suggests a society attuned not only to survival, but to ritual, symbolism, and perhaps an understanding of the cycles of life and nature that we can only speculate upon. Bryn is also remarkable for what lies around it. The mound sits atop a low ridge, overlooking fields and smaller prehistoric features, including standing stones and earlier burial sites. Evidence suggests the site was used and modified over centuries, indicating its enduring importance to local communities. Some scholars argue that the tomb may have been deliberately sited in relation to other megalithic structures on Anglesey, forming a network of ceremonial landscapes. Could these alignments have encoded knowledge of astronomy, geography, or social organization that we are only beginning to glimpse? Or were they primarily spiritual in nature, intended to connect the living with ancestors, the land, and the cosmos? Intriguingly, beneath the current Neolithic tomb lie traces of an earlier henge monument, a circular ditch and bank that predate the stone passage. This layering of structures adds another dimension to the mystery. Bryn was not built in isolation, but atop a place already considered significant. Why did later builders choose to construct the tomb on this earlier sacred site? Was it an attempt to connect with ancestral power, to inherit a spiritual legacy, or simply to utilize a location with prominence in the landscape? The answer remains obscured by time, inviting speculation and reflection. The tomb's interior and surrounding landscape suggest deliberate orchestration of both space and experience. Entering the passage, one is enveloped by stone and shadow, guided toward a chamber where light, timing, and positioning intersect in subtle, meaningful ways. Could the builders have understood the principles of sightlines, solar movement, and human perception in ways that surpass our assumptions about Neolithic cognition? Some researchers have even proposed that the site's construction reflects early experimentation with acoustics, ritual procession, or meditative experience, though such ideas remain speculative. Standing on the grassy mound today, it is easy to sense the passage of millennia. The tomb, though compact, exerts a presence that is both intimate and commanding. It speaks not only of death and remembrance, but of the human desire to understand and mark the cycles of life, time, and the heavens. Much like the urban planning of Sarazm, the water engineering of Dholavira, or the stone fortifications of Zambujal, Bryn reflects a culture capable of careful observation, technical skill, and symbolic expression. Yet, despite centuries of study, many questions remain unanswered. Why this site, in this specific landscape? What deeper knowledge or ritual purpose guided the builders? And what connections, visible only to those who lived then, have been obscured by time? As the sun dips toward the horizon and casts long shadows across the Anglesey fields, Bryn stands quietly, a sentinel of human thought and creativity. Its stones, passage, and chamber preserve fragments of understanding, intention, and ritual, yet much remains hidden beneath the mound, between the stones, and in the rhythm of the solstice sunlight. The tomb reminds us that even small, unassuming structures can embody sophistication, mystery, and a sense of human connection to the cosmos. It invites the observer to pause, reflect, and ask, what was it like to walk this passage thousands of years ago? What did the builders know about the movement of the sun, the cycle of seasons, and the unseen forces that guided their lives? And how much of that knowledge, encoded in stone and shadow, remains beyond our grasp today. From the rolling hills and solstice-lit passages of Bryn Celli, where human ritual and celestial observation intertwine, our journey now moves south across continents to the vast deserts of Oman. Here, hidden beneath the arid sands and rocky outcrops of Al-Dahira, lie the Al-Khutm underground tombs, an enigmatic network of subterranean chambers whose origins, purpose, and construction continue to elude modern understanding. Approaching the site, the desert wind sweeps across jagged terrain, carrying with it a profound stillness. The tombs themselves are unassuming at first glance, entrances marked only by stone-lined depressions, yet beneath the surface stretches a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers, carved with precision that speaks to knowledge long lost to time. The Al-Khutm tombs are part of a broader tradition of underground burial and ceremonial architecture in the Arabian Peninsula, with some estimates dating their construction to the early 1st millennium BCE. Excavations and surveys reveal an intricate network of hypogea, chambers, and connecting passages, often dug directly into limestone bedrock. Some chambers are circular, others rectangular, and many feature corbelled ceilings, stone-lined niches, or deep pits that may have served for burial, ritual, or both. Unlike above-ground structures, these subterranean tombs are hidden from view, their secrecy and permanence creating an immediate sense of mystery. Why choose to conceal the dead beneath the earth, rather than constructing monuments that rise above it? Archaeologists have uncovered human remains, pottery fragments, and tools within the tombs, suggesting both funerary and ritual use. Yet the layout of the chambers often defies straightforward explanation. Some passages extend in directions that seem intentionally convoluted, while others lead to dead ends or hidden niches. Could these designs have served as symbolic journeys, guiding the soul of the deceased through stages of passage or transformation? Were they intended to disorient intruders or outsiders, or were they simply practical adaptations to the rock and terrain? The precision of the stonework, coupled with the apparent planning of the subterranean network, implies knowledge of construction techniques, spatial design, and perhaps even a cultural cosmology that is no longer accessible to us. One of the most striking aspects of Al-Khutm is the uniformity and craftsmanship across the tombs. Chambers are carefully aligned, stones fitted tightly without mortar, and the ceilings corbelled to distribute weight evenly. In some cases, passages are narrow and low, forcing the visitor to stoop or crawl, a deliberate act that may have mirrored the transition from life to death. Could the builders have intended these physical constraints to evoke psychological or spiritual effects, shaping the experience of those who entered? And if so, what does this suggest about their beliefs regarding death, the afterlife, or the connection between the living and the deceased? The tomb's subterranean nature raises further questions about engineering knowledge and environmental adaptation. Carving chambers deep into rock in a desert environment requires careful planning to prevent collapse, manage airflow, and perhaps even maintain temperature. How did these ancient builders achieve such structural stability without modern tools? Were there lost techniques, passed down orally over generations, that allowed them to create subterranean spaces of such precision? And if these tombs were indeed part of a broader ritual or cultural system, what knowledge, now lost, governed their layout and design? Beyond their practical and ritual aspects, the tombs are remarkable for their spatial organization. Some chambers appear to form clusters or sequences, connected in ways that hint at intentional planning, possibly for hierarchical, familial, or ceremonial purposes. Others include niches or alcoves that may have held offerings, symbolic artifacts, or markers of status. The scale and uniformity of these constructions suggest a society capable of complex coordination, sustained labor, and long-term vision. Yet, the reasoning behind many of these design choices remains elusive. Were the builders attempting to communicate with future generations, encode cosmological knowledge, or simply honor the dead with careful craftsmanship? The Khutm tombs also invite speculation about their role within the wider landscape. Located near trade routes and water sources, the region may have supported both permanent and transient populations. Did the tombs serve a local community, a ruling elite, or multiple groups over time? Some researchers have noted alignments of certain passages with celestial events, such as solstices or equinoxes, reminiscent of other Neolithic and Bronze Age sites worldwide. If intentional, these alignments suggest a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and an effort to embed cosmic significance within underground architecture. Standing at the entrance today, the tombs evoke a profound sense of patience, secrecy, and continuity. Descending into the chambers, one feels the weight of centuries, the stillness of the earth, and the echoes of human intention preserved in stone. The subterranean silence contrasts sharply with the open desert above, offering a space removed from the world of sun and sand, a liminal realm where the living met the dead and ritual intersected with survival. In their quiet persistence, the tombs challenge our assumptions about ancient societies, revealing planning, skill, and purpose that often surpass expectations for their time and environment. Yet, for all we can observe, much remains hidden. The reasoning behind their construction, the full extent of the network, and the symbolic or practical knowledge encoded within remain partially obscured by millennia. What guided the hands that carved the chambers? What rituals or beliefs determined the shape, size, and orientation of the tombs? And how many secrets, buried beneath limestone and sand, remain undiscovered, waiting for a patient observer to reveal them? The Khutm underground tombs endure as a quiet testament to human ingenuity, ritual sophistication, and the enduring mystery of the past. Like Bryn, Dholavira, and Zambujal before them, they remind us that even in the absence of monumental scale or written records, ancient peoples were capable of remarkable design, careful planning, and subtle expression. And as the desert sun casts long shadows across the dunes, one cannot help but wonder what knowledge, practices, and intentions remain hidden beneath the surface, and how much of this ancient understanding has been lost to time, waiting for the curious and observant to rediscover it. From the hidden subterranean chambers of Khutm, where ancient hands carved passages beneath the desert sands, our journey now spans oceans to the rugged, forested ranges of New Zealand's North Island. Here, in the remote Kaimanawa Ranges, lies the Kaimanawa Wall, a long, seemingly linear formation of large stones, partially embedded in earth and moss, stretching along a steep ridge. At first glance, it resembles a natural accumulation of rocks, but closer inspection reveals regularity, alignment, and intentional placement that have sparked fascination, debate, and mystery. Amidst dense bush and shifting shadows, the wall emerges quietly, a relic whose origins and purpose remain tantalizingly unresolved. The Kaimanawa Wall is often described as a stone formation, roughly 200 meters in length, composed of large angular blocks that appear to have been deliberately fitted together. Some stones weigh several tons, positioned in ways that defy easy explanation. Proponents of a natural origin point to tectonic activity, erosion, and landslides as possible causes. Yet the uniformity of alignment, apparent leveling, and occasional terraces suggest intentionality to others. Were these stones placed by human hands long before European settlement, or is the order we perceive merely a trick of geology? The question remains open, inviting careful observation and consideration. Those who have studied the wall note patterns that appear more than coincidental. Certain stones seem arranged in linear sequences, forming partial steps or retaining walls along the ridge. In some sections, the blocks fit tightly together, as if designed to resist erosion or convey weight in a precise way, Such arrangements echo practices seen in other ancient stonework around the world, yet they stand in a landscape that was, until recent centuries, largely untouched by modern construction. Could this be evidence of a pre-Maori presence, a society whose story has been erased from the historical record? Or are we interpreting natural forces through the lens of human pattern recognition, seeing intention where none exists? The remoteness of the Kaimanawa ranges adds to the enigma. Thick forests, steep slopes, and limited access have preserved the wall from easy inspection, leaving much of it unexplored. Its isolation raises intriguing possibilities. If human-built, why construct a wall here, far from known settlements, without any corroborating artifacts? What purpose would it serve? Defensive, ceremonial, agricultural, or perhaps a form of boundary marking? And if natural, what combination of geological forces could produce such apparent regularity, angles, and terraces across a stretch of hundreds of meters? Some investigators point to features along the wall that suggest deliberate modification. Certain stones appear chipped or shaped, not merely by erosion, but with force consistent with intentional carving. Terraces adjacent to the wall might have functioned to stabilize the ridge, retain soil, or create platforms, practical considerations for human settlement. Yet, no accompanying tools, habitation sites, or cultural artifacts have been conclusively linked to the wall, deepening the mystery. Could such a construction have been temporary or symbolic, designed to serve a purpose now invisible to us, erased by time and vegetation? The Kaimanawa Wall also invites speculation through comparison. Across the globe, ancient societies constructed linear stone formations, terraces, and retaining walls for purposes ranging from agriculture to defense, ritual to astronomy. Could the Kaimanawa Wall represent a lost chapter in this global story, an example of human ingenuity in a landscape now reclaimed by forest and erosion? Or is it simply an elaborate natural occurrence, a geological sculpture shaped by tectonic pressure, frost action, and centuries of movement? The evidence seems to straddle the line between the two, offering glimpses of possibility without providing definitive answers. Visiting the site today, one is struck by the interplay of light and shadow along the stones. Sunlight filtering through the trees highlights angular faces, while moss and lichen soften edges, merging human-like design with natural camouflage. The forest seems to embrace the wall, concealing it from view and amplifying its sense of secrecy. Walking its length, the observer senses both continuity and interruption, the rhythm of the stones suggesting planning, yet interrupted by randomness, as if the landscape itself had contributed to the design. What stories, if any, were intended to be told through these stones? And who, if anyone, placed them here? Beyond questions of origin, the Kaimanawa Wall encourages reflection on perception itself. How do we distinguish between natural and artificial, coincidence and intention? Across millennia, humans have left marks on the landscape that persist long after their societies vanish. Sometimes these marks are deliberate, monumental, and well documented. Other times, they are subtle, enigmatic, and easily mistaken for natural features. The Kaimanawa Wall occupies a liminal space, challenging observers to consider both possibilities and to confront the limits of our understanding. Even in the absence of clear answers, the wall retains a quiet authority. It commands attention not through height or grandeur, but through its persistence, its pattern, and its ability to provoke wonder. Like the underground tombs of Khutm, the Neolithic passage of Bryn or the reservoirs of Dholavira, the Kaimanawa Wall reminds us that ancient ingenuity and mystery can take many forms. Its stones endure as a dialogue between nature and potential human intention, inviting contemplation, investigation, and imagination. And as the wind whispers through the trees, carrying the scent of moss and stone, one is left with an enduring question: how much remains hidden just beyond our reach? If human-built, what knowledge, ritual, or purpose guided these hands now vanished? And if natural, what forces of the earth can create such an illusion of order and intention? The Kaimanawa Wall remains silent, yet persistent, a sentinel of possibility and enigma, waiting for those willing to see beyond the obvious, to linger, observe, and wonder. From the rugged ridges and enigmatic stones of New Zealand's Kaimanawa Wall, where nature and potential human intention intertwine in silence, our journey now moves across continents to the highlands of central Mexico. Here, atop a plateau overlooking the semi-arid valleys of Zacatecas, rise the ruins of La Quemada, a sprawling citadel whose terraces, walls, and stairways whisper of a civilization long vanished. At first glance, the site appears as a series of stone platforms ascending the hill, each one layered upon the next like pages in an ancient manuscript. The wind carries the dust of centuries, brushing over the weathered walls as if preserving their secrets, inviting visitors to contemplate the lives and intentions of those who built them. La Quemada is estimated to have been occupied between 300 and 1200 CE, during a period that predates the height of the Aztec Empire. The settlement encompasses more than 70 hectares, with terraces carved into the hillside, massive walls forming defensive enclosures, and stairways connecting structures in ways that suggest deliberate urban planning. Archaeologists have identified residential areas, ceremonial spaces, and defensive fortifications, yet the overall purpose and function of the citadel remain partially obscured. Was La Quemada primarily a fortified city, a ceremonial hub, or perhaps both? Its design hints at sophistication and strategy, yet the society that built it left behind no written records to clarify its story. One of the most striking features of La Quemada is its terraces. These expansive stone platforms rise in successive levels, supporting buildings, plazas, and ceremonial spaces. The largest of these terraces is capped by a structure often referred to as the round structure, a circular platform whose purpose continues to puzzle researchers. Some propose it was a temple or observatory, while others suggest it may have served a social or administrative function. The precision with which the terraces were cut into the hillside, stabilized with stone retaining walls, and connected by stairways and ramps, points to knowledge of engineering and topography that seems remarkable for the period. How did the builders calculate gradients, manage drainage, and ensure structural stability without modern surveying tools? La Quemada's walls further add to its intrigue. Massive stone blocks form defensive barriers along the perimeter, creating a sense of enclosure that both protects and isolates the citadel. Yet within these fortifications lie complex networks of smaller walls, staircases, and alleyways that guide movement in ways that appear intentional, almost ritualistic. Could these internal structures have been designed to control access, orchestrate ceremonial processions, or convey social hierarchy? And if so, what ideas or cosmological beliefs informed this architecture, now only partially understood through its physical remnants? Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of human occupation, including pottery, obsidian tools, and traces of metalworking, indicating that La Quemada was not merely a ceremonial site, but a living, thriving community. Yet the scale and sophistication of the citadel suggest purposes that go beyond daily life. Certain alignments of stairways and plazas correspond to solar positions, hinting at astronomical observation or calendrical calculation. Were the builders of La Quemada marking time, seasons, or celestial events, embedding their understanding of the cosmos into stone? And if so, how much of this knowledge has been lost, leaving only fragments for us to interpret? The citadel's location amplifies its mystery. Perched on a plateau overlooking vast valleys, La Quemada dominates the surrounding landscape, commanding views in every direction. Such a position is ideal for defense, yet it is also symbolic, a statement of presence and authority. Did the citadel serve as a regional center of power, a refuge during conflict, or a sacred site connecting the people with the land and sky? Some researchers have speculated that it may have functioned as a pilgrimage center, attracting visitors from distant regions, while others suggest that its architecture reflects both defensive necessity and social stratification. The construction techniques of La Quemada also provoke questions. Stones are carefully shaped and fitted, terraces reinforced with rubble and mortar-like materials, and stairways carved to precise dimensions. In some cases, walls show evidence of deliberate burning, a phenomenon that has sparked debate. Were these intentional ceremonial fires, accidental destruction, or part of a ritualized abandonment? Such details hint at layers of meaning and practice that remain invisible to the modern eye, encoded in the stones themselves and in the spatial relationships between terraces, plazas, and enclosures. Visiting the site today, the terraces, stairways, and walls evoke a powerful sense of continuity and purpose. Each step along the stone paths feels deliberate, as though the builders intended visitors to experience the space in a specific way, guiding perception, movement, and attention. Much like the Kaimanawa Wall, Khutm tombs, or Bryn passage, La Quemada conveys knowledge not through words, but through the careful orchestration of space, materials, and position. Its architecture embodies both practical and symbolic understanding, yet its full meaning remains tantalizingly out of reach. And so, standing atop the highest terrace, overlooking the valleys below, one is compelled to reflect on the ingenuity and intention of La Quemada's builders. Who were they, and what forces shaped their vision? Did they conceive of this citadel as a bastion of defense, a center of ritual, or both? How much of their knowledge of engineering, astronomy, and social organization has been lost to the centuries? The citadel endures in silence, its terraces and walls offering no answers but inviting endless questions, challenging us to consider the remarkable capabilities of ancient societies and the mysteries that survive in stone, shadow, and the enduring imprint of human ambition. From the sun-baked terraces of La Quemada, where stone and landscape converge to form a citadel of mystery and human ingenuity, our journey now takes us across continents once more to the rolling hills and rocky outcrops of northeastern North Macedonia. Here, perched atop a volcanic plateau near the town of Kumanovo, lies Kokino, an ancient megalithic site whose stones, terraces, and carefully aligned outcrops suggest both ritual purpose and astronomical precision. As the morning sun sweeps across the plateau, shadows trace the contours of carved rocks, hinting at patterns that were likely observed and measured thousands of years ago. The site is quiet, isolated, and evocative, a place where stone and sky meet, inviting contemplation and inquiry. Kokino is estimated to date back to the Bronze Age, around 1800 BCE, placing it among the earliest known megalithic observatories in the world. Archaeologists have identified a series of naturally occurring and man-modified stones that appear to function as markers for celestial events: the rising and setting of the sun and moon, seasonal shifts, and perhaps even lunar standstills. Certain rocks are positioned on terraces, while others feature carved circular depressions or sighting notches, forming alignments that capture sunlight at precise moments of the year. These features suggest a deliberate attempt to measure time and track the movement of celestial bodies, yet the exact knowledge and methods behind the design remain elusive. Walking across the site, one senses both the simplicity and complexity of its construction. On first glance, the stones may seem randomly scattered, but closer inspection reveals regularity in their spacing, angles, and orientation. Some flat surfaces appear to have been leveled, while others bear circular pits whose purpose is debated. Could they have held markers, ceremonial objects, or functioned as part of a proto-calendar system? The arrangement suggests not only observation, but also the capacity to record or signal patterns over long periods. How did Bronze Age people, without written language or sophisticated instruments, achieve such precision? And what motivated them to dedicate labor and time to this endeavor, perched high above the surrounding valleys? Kokino's elevated location adds to the mystery. From the plateau, the horizon stretches unbroken, offering clear views of sunrises, sunsets, and lunar events. Such a vantage point would have been ideal for early astronomical observation, yet it also required considerable effort to access, particularly for transporting stones, carving terraces, and maintaining the site. Was the observatory intended solely for practical purposes, tracking agricultural cycles and seasonal changes, or did it serve a ceremonial function as well, connecting the people to the cosmos in a symbolic way? And if both purposes were intertwined, how did the builders reconcile the technical demands of observation with the ritual expectations of their society? Archaeological studies reveal evidence of human activity beyond the stones themselves. Ceramics, hearths, and traces of temporary shelters suggest that the site was occupied seasonally, perhaps by specialized observers or ritual participants. The terraces and natural platforms may have been used for gatherings, offerings, or ceremonies, blending scientific observation with social and spiritual practice. Such duality, practical knowledge embedded within ritualized space, is a hallmark of many ancient observatories, yet Kokino stands out for the apparent sophistication and foresight of its creators. Could these people have possessed knowledge of celestial cycles that we are only beginning to appreciate? Equally compelling are the features that resist easy explanation. Certain alignments at Kokino correspond to extreme solar and lunar positions, yet others do not seem to match any known astronomical cycle. Some researchers speculate that these anomalies may reflect lost observations, symbolic orientations, or measurements tied to cultural or mythological significance, rather than purely scientific calculation. Could the site encode both observable phenomena and intangible knowledge, cosmology, ritual cycles, or social hierarchy that has been lost to time? The stones themselves hold the answers, but their language is subtle, requiring careful observation and interpretation. The physical experience of moving through Kokino reinforces its enigmatic qualities. Terraces rise and fall, sighting stones guide the eye along the horizon, and carved depressions capture light in ways that may have marked the passage of days, months, or years. Entering the site, one is aware of the careful orchestration of movement and perspective, as though the builders intended visitors to witness the changing sky in a structured sequence. How much of this knowledge was shared communally, and how much restricted to a small cadre of observers or ritual specialists? And what role did these celestial observations play in the rhythms of daily life, governance, or spiritual practice? Standing atop the plateau at Kokino, overlooking the valleys below and the distant mountains beyond, the mind is drawn to the human effort embedded in the stone. The site speaks not only of technical skill, but of intention, observation, and reverence for forces beyond immediate comprehension. Much like La Quemada, the Kaimanawa Wall, or Bryn Celli, Kokino reminds us that ancient societies could combine practical understanding with symbolic expression, embedding knowledge of the natural world into enduring structures. Yet, despite decades of study, much remains uncertain. How precisely did the builders measure the heavens, and what knowledge guided their alignments? What rituals, observations, or social functions were intertwined with this early scientific pursuit? As the sun arcs across the sky and illuminates terraces, depressions, and sight lines, Kokino continues to inspire reflection and curiosity. Its stones, positioned with apparent purpose, endure as silent witnesses to Bronze Age ingenuity and observation. And yet, for all we can discern, mysteries remain. How much of the knowledge encoded here has been lost, buried under centuries of earth, vegetation, and time? What patterns, calculations, or insights remain hidden, waiting for careful study, or perhaps a touch of serendipity, to reveal them? Kokino stands as a testament to humanity's enduring fascination with the sky, the cycles of nature, and the desire to understand our place within them, inviting all who visit to pause, observe, and wonder. From the sunlit terraces of Kokino, where Bronze Age observers once measured the heavens, we now travel northwest across Europe to the windswept coast of Brittany, France. There, perched upon gentle hills overlooking the Channel, rises the Cairn of Barnenez, an ancient mound of stone whose sheer scale and longevity have fascinated archaeologists, historians, and visitors for decades. At first sight, it seems like a modest hill, yet closer inspection reveals a labyrinth of carefully placed megaliths, narrow passageways, and burial chambers, forming one of the oldest monumental constructions in Europe. Its weathered stones, draped in moss and lichen, radiate an aura of endurance, as if the mound itself holds memory of a civilization that has long since vanished. The Cairn of Barnenez is believed to have been constructed around 4,850 BCE, placing it at the dawn of European megalithic activity and making it older than Stonehenge or the Great Pyramids of Egypt. Spanning over 70 meters in length and rising more than 8 meters in height, the cairn houses multiple burial chambers built from massive stone slabs, some weighing several tons. Each chamber is accessed by narrow passageways, arranged to allow entry from the outside while sheltering the remains within. The scale of construction, combined with the precision of the stone placements, reflects an extraordinary degree of planning, labor organization, and technical knowledge for such an early period. Walking along the mound today, one is struck by the complexity of its internal layout. The cairn contains over 10 chambers, many of which are decorated with incised patterns, abstract symbols, and occasionally depictions resembling tools or human figures. These carvings are subtle yet deliberate, suggesting symbolic or ritual significance that has been partially obscured by time. What did these early builders intend to communicate through their art? Were the carvings mnemonic devices for rites of passage, spiritual beliefs, or cosmological observation? And how much cultural knowledge has been irretrievably lost in the millennia since the cairn was first constructed? The arrangement of the chambers within the cairn also raises questions about intent and understanding. Some chambers are aligned in sequences, while others appear slightly offset, creating pathways that guide movement through the mound in a particular order. Did these alignments have practical functions, ceremonial purposes, or symbolic meaning? Archaeologists have noted that certain passages may have been oriented to catch sunlight at specific times of the year, hinting at an early form of solar observation. Could these ancient builders have been measuring the cycles of the sun, marking seasonal change, or embedding astronomical knowledge within the tomb itself? Evidence suggests that the construction of Barnenez was not a single endeavor but a series of building campaigns spanning generations. Some chambers appear older, while others were added later, reflecting evolving techniques, social structures, or ritual practices. This layering of construction points to a continuity of purpose and a sustained commitment to monumental labor over centuries. How did these communities coordinate such projects without written records? What social, spiritual, or political systems allowed for the allocation of resources, labor, and knowledge necessary to maintain construction on this scale? The cairn's location itself invites speculation. Situated on elevated terrain overlooking fertile valleys and the distant sea, Barnenez commands expansive views of the surrounding landscape. Was this prominence chosen for defensive reasons, or for spiritual and symbolic significance? Did the builders intend the mound to be seen from afar, a marker of presence, authority, or reverence? And if so, what message was it meant to convey to contemporary observers, neighbors, visitors, or future generations? The answers remain elusive, hidden among the stones and in the silence of centuries. Equally compelling is the precision of the megalithic work. Large stones are carefully fitted, slabs are balanced with remarkable skill, and passages are constructed to endure. The builders demonstrated knowledge of weight distribution, alignment, and long-term stability, all without the aid of metal tools or written schematics. How did they accomplish this? And to what extent was the knowledge empirical, learned through observation and experience, or guided by ritualized practice? The cairn challenges assumptions about the sophistication of Neolithic societies, showing that monumental construction and architectural planning existed far earlier than previously imagined. As one moves through the dimly lit passages today, there is a tangible sense of time suspended. The walls echo with the footsteps of centuries, the faint impressions of hands that shaped stone, and the long-forgotten rituals once performed within. It is a place where practical, ceremonial, and symbolic elements converge, leaving traces of human intention while guarding the full scope of its meaning. Much like Kokino, La Quemada, and other ancient sites we have visited, Barnenez conveys knowledge not through written word, but through structure, alignment, and enduring form. Yet for all we can observe, the Cairn of Barnenez retains its mysteries. Why were some chambers decorated while others were left bare? How were labor, resources, and social organization managed in a time without written records? Were astronomical alignments intentional or coincidental? And what significance did they hold for the builders? The cairn endures as both a functional burial site and a monument to human ingenuity, leaving us to wonder what knowledge and intentions are still encoded in its stones. Standing atop the mound today, gazing across the Breton landscape, one is reminded of the Cairn of Barnenez's silent testimony to early human ambition, ingenuity, and reverence. It is a site that embodies both continuity and enigma, a place where past and present intersect through stone, shadow, and the faint traces of ancient hands. And as the wind brushes across the weathered megaliths, the mind is left with a question that has persisted for nearly 7 millennia. What secrets, knowledge, or stories remain hidden within these stones, waiting for the patient and perceptive to uncover them? From the moss-covered stones and enduring silence of the Cairn of Barnenez, where Neolithic hands shaped monumental tombs and preserved knowledge in stone, our journey now carries us across continents and millennia to the dense forests of northern Cambodia. Here, amidst the humid air and the rustling of ancient trees, lie the ruins of Sambor Prei, a collection of brick temples whose intricate design, unusual construction techniques, and mysterious symbolism have captured the imagination of historians, archaeologists, and travelers alike. At first glance, the site seems overtaken by jungle, with vines draping towers and roots prying between walls. Yet its form and layout hint at deliberate planning, technical sophistication, and cultural purpose far beyond the obvious. Sambor Prei, believed to date back to the 6th century CE, predates the Angkorian Empire, representing the ancient Chenla kingdom's architectural and religious achievements. The temples are constructed primarily of bricks, a medium that allows for remarkable precision in layering and shaping, yet the longevity of these structures in Cambodia's tropical climate raises questions about the techniques used to ensure stability. Many bricks bear small incisions, arranged in patterns that appear both functional and symbolic, while some stones incorporated into foundations seem to have been transported over significant distances. How did these early builders achieve such durability in a humid, unstable environment? And what knowledge guided their selection, placement, and alignment of materials? The layout of Sambor Prei is equally compelling. The temples are arranged within a series of compounds, often centered around a main sanctuary, with smaller shrines and courtyards radiating outward. Causeways, stairways, and terraces connect these spaces in ways that suggest careful orchestration of movement and sightlines. Certain temples are aligned along axes that correspond to cardinal directions, hinting at possible cosmological or ritual significance. Was the arrangement of temples meant to mirror celestial patterns, the topography of the land, or some spiritual cosmology that has been lost to time? The more one studies the site, the more it becomes clear that the builders were not merely constructing individual temples, but shaping a sacred landscape. Inside the temples, intricate carvings, bas-reliefs, and decorative motifs reveal both artistry and symbolic language. Many depictions suggest a synthesis of Hindu and indigenous beliefs, with figures of deities, mythological creatures, and geometric motifs integrated into the brickwork. Yet there are also abstract or enigmatic carvings whose meaning remains uncertain, patterns that seem deliberate yet defy clear interpretation. Were these purely aesthetic flourishes, coded messages, or ritual symbols? And if symbolic, what knowledge or belief systems do they reflect, now obscured by centuries of neglect and forest overgrowth? Some temples show evidence of unusual construction techniques that continue to intrigue researchers. Bricks are often bonded with organic materials, lime mortar, or other binding agents that resist erosion and moisture. Yet the exact composition and method remain only partially understood. Certain foundations appear to float on shallow terraces or raised platforms, creating stability on uneven terrain. Could these techniques represent lost knowledge of engineering adapted specifically for the tropical environment, combining structural ingenuity with ritual precision? The sophistication of construction suggests a level of expertise and organization comparable to later Angkorian architecture, yet the builders' methods remain largely enigmatic. The spatial and symbolic organization of Sambor Prei raises additional questions about its role within the Chenla kingdom. Some researchers suggest the site was a political as well as religious center, combining ceremonial, administrative, and residential functions. Others propose that it was a pilgrimage site, designed to guide worshippers through a carefully orchestrated sequence of temples and courtyards, each step reinforcing spiritual or social hierarchy. What can the careful alignment, tiered terraces, and enclosed courtyards tell us about the beliefs, priorities, or social structure of a society that left few written records? How much knowledge has been lost to the cycles of conquest, abandonment, and jungle reclamation? Visiting the site today, one is struck by the interplay of light, shadow, and space. Sunlight filters through the canopy, illuminating carvings and pathways in fleeting patterns, as if echoing the ceremonial experience of ancient worshippers. The bricks themselves, though weathered, exude an enduring sense of purpose and skill. It is a place where human intention and natural forces converge, where the jungle both conceals and preserves, challenging observers to discern what is natural, what is engineered, and what is symbolic. Yet, for all we can see, Sambor Prei retains layers of mystery. Why were certain temples constructed in isolation, while others were grouped into complexes? What determined the choice of motifs and symbols carved into the brick? Were astronomical alignments intentionally incorporated, and if so, for what purpose? The site invites speculation but offers no definitive answers, leaving observers to navigate between fact, interpretation, and imagination. Standing amid the ruins, listening to the sounds of the forest, and feeling the rough texture of centuries-old brick, one cannot help but sense the vision and ambition of the builders. Sambor Prei embodies a society that understood material, space, and symbolism, yet whose knowledge has largely vanished into time and environment. Much like the Cairn of Barnenez, Kokino Observatory, or La Quemada, the site reminds us that ancient civilizations often encoded profound understanding in their architecture, leaving puzzles for future generations to ponder. And as the wind stirs the leaves and sunlight glances across moss-covered terraces, one question persists. What deeper knowledge, what lost rituals or what hidden meanings remain buried within these brick walls, waiting to be rediscovered by those patient enough to observe, study, and wonder? Sambor Prei endures, simultaneously revealed and concealed, a testament to human creativity, spiritual vision, and the enduring mysteries of the ancient world. From the dense forests and intricate brick temples of Sambor Prei, where ancient hands transformed clay into enduring sanctuaries, our journey now carries us across continents to the Indian Ocean coastline of East Africa. Here, along the sparkling shores of Tanzania, lie the remains of Songo Mnara, a Swahili settlement whose coral stone foundations, sun-baked courtyards, and labyrinthine alleyways reveal a civilization of remarkable sophistication. At first sight, the ruins appear modest, the low walls and scattered foundations blending with coastal vegetation and shifting sands. Yet beneath the surface lies evidence of a thriving urban center, a place where trade, architecture, and culture intersected with surprising ingenuity, leaving traces that continue to challenge historians and archaeologists alike. Songo Mnara flourished between the 14th and 16th centuries CE, a time when Swahili city-states along the East African coast were thriving hubs of maritime trade. Its buildings were constructed using coral rag, a natural material harvested from offshore reefs, and lime mortar, forming foundations, walls, and platforms that could withstand both the tropical climate and the ebb and flow of human activity over centuries. The precision of the coral blocks, the careful layering, and the subtle orientation of structures suggest not merely practical construction, but an understanding of engineering principles finely tuned to a coastal environment. How did these builders select, cut, and transport coral to create such enduring foundations? And what knowledge of tides, soil stability, and material longevity guided their methods? The settlement itself is composed of clusters of houses, mosques, tombs, and courtyards, arranged along narrow streets that twist and turn across the site. Certain mosques feature minarets, intricate niches, and decorative elements carved from coral, while residential compounds exhibit raised platforms, private courtyards, and strategically placed doorways. The layout suggests careful planning, yet many details remain puzzling. Why were some areas densely built while others left open? Were the streets designed for practical circulation, ceremonial procession, or perhaps to manage environmental factors like wind and sunlight? The subtle interplay of space, structure, and environment hints at a sophisticated understanding of both social and ecological dynamics. Among the most intriguing features of Songo Mnara are its tombs and coral-carved niches, often aligned along axes that suggest symbolic or spiritual significance. The presence of inscriptions, carved patterns, and occasional decorative motifs implies that the builders were not only concerned with function, but with identity, status, and cultural expression. Yet much of the symbolic meaning has been obscured by time, decay, and the disappearance of oral traditions. What stories did these patterns encode? Were they markers of lineage, faith, or cosmological knowledge now lost to memory? And how did the interplay of trade, religion, and local culture shape the architectural choices of this city-state? The use of coral as a building material itself invites curiosity. Harvesting, shaping, and assembling coral into enduring walls and foundations requires both technical skill and an intimate knowledge of the material's properties. Some coral blocks bear chisel marks, while others are carefully fitted without mortar, creating stability through precise placement. Could these techniques represent a tradition of craftsmanship developed over generations, combining empirical knowledge with ritualized practice? And if so, how did such knowledge spread across the Swahili coast, connecting Songo Mnara to distant ports, cultures, and architectural influences from Arabia, India, and beyond? Songo Mnara also presents mysteries in its urban design. Certain compounds appear to follow standardized proportions, while others break expected patterns, suggesting layers of construction over time, adaptation to environmental changes, or deliberate social signaling. Some researchers have speculated that the settlement may have included hidden or semi-private spaces for ritual, trade negotiation, or governance, now difficult to discern amid the overgrown ruins. How were these spaces used? And what might their design reveal about social hierarchy, religious practice, or interactions with seafaring visitors from far-off lands? Walking through the ruins today, one is struck by the contrast between coral's delicate texture and the enduring impression of human effort. Sunlight glances across raised platforms and carved blocks, highlighting subtle alignments, shadowed recesses, and the intricate layering of walls. The settlement feels alive with the echoes of past activity, markets, prayers, and communal gatherings. Yet the full rhythm of life at Songo Mnara remains inaccessible. Much like Sambor Prei, the Cairn of Barnenez, or Kokino Observatory, the site communicates through structure, material, and spatial arrangement rather than words, leaving the observer to reconstruct intent, function, and meaning from what endures. Yet, for all we can observe, many questions persist. How much knowledge about construction, trade, and urban planning has been lost to centuries of coastal erosion, shifting sands, and abandonment? Were there astronomical or environmental considerations encoded into the layout of streets and courtyards, as seen in other ancient sites around the world? How did the builders balance practical needs with symbolic and ceremonial ones, creating a city that was both functional and expressive? These questions linger, unanswered, challenging modern observers to consider not only what is visible, but also what might remain hidden beneath layers of coral, soil, and history. Songo Mnara endures as a testament to human ingenuity, adaptation, and cultural exchange. Its coral foundations, carved walls, and organized compounds speak of a society capable of remarkable technical skill, aesthetic sensibility, and urban vision. And yet, like many ancient sites we have visited, from Cambodia to Europe, from New Zealand to Africa, the full story is elusive. The settlement invites reflection on the passage of knowledge, the impermanence of societies, and the enduring mysteries encoded in human-made landscapes. Standing amid the ruins, one cannot help but wonder what secrets, innovations, or practices remain buried, waiting to be rediscovered by those patient enough to study, explore, and imagine the life that once thrived here. From the coral-built streets and coastal sophistication of Songo Mnara, where trade, culture, and engineering converged along the Tanzanian shoreline, our journey now moves across seas to the northern reaches of the Malay Peninsula. Here, in the heart of Malaysia's Kedah state, lie the ancient port structures of Sungai Batu, remnants of a civilization that flourished over 2,500 years ago, leaving behind stone foundations, mounds, and a network of industrial installations that suggest a sophisticated maritime and metallurgical hub. The site is surrounded by rice paddies and tropical forest, its low-lying mounds blending into the landscape. Yet beneath the earth lie traces of human enterprise that hint at trade, innovation, and knowledge far beyond what might be expected in the region for that period. Sungai Batu is dated to around 788 BCE, making it one of the oldest known settlements in Southeast Asia. Archaeological excavations have uncovered stone-built foundations, brick-lined canals, and industrial facilities believed to have been used for iron smelting. Evidence of furnaces, slag, and iron artifacts indicates a level of metallurgical expertise remarkable for its time. The scale and organization of the site suggest that it was not a simple village but a major economic center, functioning as a port, production hub, and perhaps even a regional capital. How did these ancient people acquire the knowledge and resources to manage such complex industrial activity? And how extensive was their network of trade, connecting the Malay Peninsula to distant lands across the Indian Ocean? Walking the site today, one is struck by the precision of the stone foundations. Large blocks are carefully positioned to create platforms, support structures, and pathways that likely accommodated both residential and industrial activities. Some foundations suggest multi-story constructions, while others appear to have been designed to bear the weight of furnaces and workshops. The channels and embankments, aligned with the flow of water, hint at an advanced understanding of hydrology, enabling efficient transport of goods and possibly the management of water for industrial processes. Could such knowledge have been developed locally, or was it borrowed from distant cultures along ancient maritime trade routes? The port's layout further amplifies the mystery. Excavators have identified clusters of structures that appear to serve distinct functions: residential quarters, industrial zones, ceremonial or communal spaces, and docking areas for boats and trade vessels. The separation and organization of these zones imply careful urban planning, a deliberate allocation of labor and resources, and an understanding of social hierarchy. Yet much about Sungai Batu remains unexplained. Why was such a sophisticated settlement abandoned? What cultural, political, or environmental factors led to its decline? And why has it remained largely hidden beneath layers of earth and vegetation, known only to locals until recent decades? One of the most fascinating aspects of Sungai Batu is the apparent mastery of iron production. Analysis of slag, furnace remains, and iron artifacts suggests a technological capability comparable to other major early civilizations. The furnaces, lined with stone and arranged for optimal airflow, reflect an empirical understanding of metallurgy, while the sheer volume of production indicates organized labor and possibly export-driven commerce. Could Sungai Batu have supplied iron to distant regions, influencing trade networks that extended across Southeast Asia, India, or even beyond? If so, what knowledge and skills were transmitted along these routes, and how much of it has been lost to history? The site also invites speculation about symbolic or ritual significance. Certain mounds and structures do not fit the apparent pattern of industrial or residential use, hinting at ceremonial or spiritual purposes. Were these areas connected to the metallurgical process, perhaps sanctifying the transformation of raw ore into usable metal? Or were they independent centers of worship, marking the spiritual life of the community that thrived here? The layering of function, practical, industrial, ceremonial, speaks to a society capable of integrating multiple aspects of life into a coherent spatial and social design. Walking among the stone foundations, canals, and mounds, one is struck by the interplay between natural environment and human ingenuity. The builders of Sungai Batu adapted to the tropical terrain, channeling rivers, stabilizing foundations, and organizing structures in ways that allowed the settlement to function efficiently over centuries. Yet the site is fragile, reclaimed slowly by the earth and forest, leaving us to interpret its scale, purpose, and sophistication from fragments alone. Much like Songo Mnara, Sambor Prei, or the Cairn of Barnenez, Sungai Batu communicates not through words, but through spatial arrangement, material choice, and enduring traces of labor and design. Despite decades of study, much about Sungai Batu remains uncertain. How was the iron smelting knowledge developed and transmitted? What motivated the construction of stone foundations, canals, and industrial clusters at such a precise scale? And what caused the settlement to decline, leaving behind traces that are only now being uncovered? Each answer leads to further questions, highlighting both the ingenuity and the mystery of this early port civilization. Sungai Batu endures as a testament to human skill, adaptation, and the integration of industry, trade, and social organization. Its coral and stone foundations, industrial installations, and carefully arranged spaces speak of a society capable of remarkable planning, technical knowledge, and environmental adaptation. And yet, like the ancient structures we have explored across the globe, from Cambodia to Africa, from Europe to New Zealand, the full story remains elusive. Standing amidst the ruins, feeling the sun on the stone and the whisper of wind through the mounds, one is compelled to ask, what secrets, innovations, or connections remain buried here, waiting to be revealed by those willing to observe, study, and wonder at the ingenuity of our ancestors? From the tropical coasts and industrial ingenuity of Sungai Batu, where ancient hands manipulated coral, stone, and water to build a thriving port and metallurgical center, our journey now carries us across the African continent to the vast plains of West Africa. Here, spanning the borderlands of Senegal and the Gambia, lie the enigmatic stone circles of Senegambia, thousands of granite megaliths scattered across open savanna, forming patterns that have endured for over a millennium. At first glance, they appear as silent, irregular heaps of weathered rock, yet upon closer observation, the arrangement reveals careful planning, symmetry, and purpose, hinting at a culture with knowledge and traditions that remain tantalizingly obscure. The stone circles are thought to date from roughly the 3rd century BCE to the 16th century CE, placing them within a vast time frame of West African prehistory and early historical periods. Archaeologists have documented more than 1,000 sites containing tens of thousands of individual stones, arranged in circular, oval, or rectangular patterns, often surrounding burial mounds. These circles are usually composed of granite or laterite, some standing over 2 meters tall, others carefully embedded in the ground. The sheer number and distribution of these structures suggest an organized, widespread cultural practice, yet the exact purpose and methods remain only partially understood. Walking among the circles today, one is immediately aware of scale and repetition. Stones are placed with a regularity that appears intentional, creating concentric patterns or aligned rows that echo across the plains. Many of the circles surround mounds containing human remains, suggesting a funerary function, yet others stand alone or cluster in ways that hint at ceremonial, social, or astronomical significance. Were the builders marking sacred landscapes, recording ancestral lineages, or mapping celestial events across the savanna? And if so, what cultural or spiritual knowledge guided their placement of stones with such care and consistency? The circles are particularly striking because of their spatial precision. In many cases, rows of stones form straight alignments, concentric rings, or subtle pathways connecting burial mounds. Some researchers have noted that certain clusters seem oriented to solar or lunar events, though the evidence is incomplete and interpretations vary. Could these alignments reflect astronomical observation, a symbolic mapping of the heavens, or simply practical design for communal gathering and ritual? The ambiguity of the evidence invites both awe and caution, as the line between deliberate intention and coincidental pattern can be difficult to discern in such ancient and widely distributed structures. Excavations have revealed that the mounds often contain pottery, iron tools, and ornaments, suggesting a community that combined craftsmanship, trade, and ritual practice. Yet, unlike some other ancient megalithic traditions, the builders left no written records. We are left to reconstruct their beliefs and practices through subtle clues encoded in stone placement, grave goods, and landscape orientation. How did these communities transmit knowledge across generations and vast distances, maintaining a consistent architectural tradition? And what social or spiritual frameworks supported the construction of thousands of these structures across such an extensive region? Equally fascinating are the regional variations in the circles. Some feature single concentric rings, others multiple overlapping circles. Some mounds contain single burials, others multiple interments over time. These differences hint at evolving traditions, local adaptations, or perhaps hierarchical distinctions within the society. Did certain stone patterns denote status, lineage, or occupation? Were some sites pilgrimage destinations while others functioned as local communal cemeteries? The lack of written records leaves these questions open, inviting careful observation and informed speculation. The natural environment also interacts subtly with the stone circles. Placed on elevated knolls, along gentle slopes, or adjacent to seasonal watercourses, many circles seem deliberately sited to take advantage of topography, visibility, or symbolic connection to the landscape. Could placement reflect spiritual belief, territorial demarcation, or environmental strategy? And how did the builders adapt construction techniques to the granite and laterite available, shaping stones and arranging them to endure centuries of wind, rain, and human activity? Visiting the site today, the circles evoke a sense of rhythm and repetition that is at once calming and mysterious. The weathered stones cast long shadows in the low sun, accentuating patterns that may have been significant to the builders, yet remain opaque to modern observers. Much like Sungai Batu, Sambor Prei, or the Cairn of Barnenez, the stone circles of Senegambia communicate knowledge and intention without words, leaving only the arrangement of durable materials to hint at purpose, meaning, and cultural significance. And yet, for all their enduring presence, the circles preserve as many questions as they reveal. How were such widespread and consistent traditions maintained over centuries? Were the alignments purely funerary, or did they encode cosmological, political, or social information? How much knowledge about ritual, astronomy, and social organization has been lost to time, erosion, and human activity? The stones stand as silent witnesses, their meaning partially obscured yet profoundly compelling. The stone circles of Senegambia endure as a testament to the ingenuity, devotion, and continuity of early West African societies. Their scale, precision, and distribution suggest an impressive level of social organization, cultural memory, and technical skill. Yet, as with the other ancient sites we have explored, from Sungai Batu's port to Kokino's observatory, from Barnenez to La Quemada, the full story remains hidden, encoded in stones that have outlasted generations. Standing among these silent circles, one is compelled to ask, what stories, beliefs, or knowledge remain buried here, waiting for patient study and careful reflection? And what do they reveal about the human desire to leave a mark on the land, to connect with ancestors, and perhaps even to touch the cosmos? From the rolling plains and silent stone circles of Senegambia, where generations of West African communities marked their landscape with patterns of ritual, burial, and perhaps cosmological knowledge, our journey now turns eastward, across deserts and mountains, to the fertile plains of central Iran. There, on the outskirts of the modern city of Kashan, rise the remains of Tepe Sialk, one of the oldest known ziggurats in the world. Its terraced mounds, sun-bleached bricks, and remnants of mud walls evoke a civilization that flourished more than 5,000 years ago, yet whose intentions, knowledge, and practices remain partially obscured by the passage of millennia. The site of Tepe Sialk dates back to the 4th millennium BCE, representing some of the earliest known urban and ritual architecture in the Iranian plateau. The ziggurat itself, now a tiered mound of mud bricks, was likely a focal point of ceremonial and administrative activity, rising above the surrounding settlement like a silent monument to human ambition. Excavations have revealed multiple layers of construction, suggesting successive building phases over centuries, each adding terraces, walls, and platforms. The scale of the architecture implies both social organization and technical knowledge. How did these early builders move massive quantities of mud bricks, shape them precisely, and create foundations capable of enduring the test of time? Walking the site today, the massive terraces dominate the landscape, their stepped sides echoing the labor of thousands of hands. Each layer of brickwork is not simply structural. Subtle variations in thickness, composition, and alignment suggest careful consideration of stability, drainage, and even symbolic proportion. Could these differences encode ritual significance, societal hierarchy, or cosmological understanding? And if so, what knowledge guided the builders' choices, now only partially readable through archaeology? The surrounding settlement adds to the intrigue. Houses, workshops, and burial spaces have been identified around the ziggurat, indicating a community that combined residential, industrial, and ceremonial functions. Pottery, stone tools, and traces of early metallurgy hint at a population engaged in trade, craft, and daily life, yet organized around a monumental central structure. Why did they choose to focus resources and labor on the ziggurat? Was it purely a religious center, or did it serve multiple functions, administrative, social, and symbolic, within the broader community? Equally compelling are the construction techniques themselves. The bricks, made of sun-dried mud, were sometimes fired in kilns to increase durability, a practice that would require careful knowledge of material properties and fire control. Terraces were reinforced with rubble and sometimes faced with smoother brick surfaces, creating platforms both functional and aesthetically imposing. How did early builders conceive of such engineering methods without formal mathematics or written instruction? Could these techniques reflect empirical observation over generations, ritualized construction practices, or even a form of proto-architectural knowledge that has since been lost? The ziggurat's alignment also sparks questions. Some researchers note that the terraces may be oriented to cardinal points or seasonal solar events, suggesting possible astronomical awareness. Was Tepe Sialk designed to interact with sunlight, shadow, or celestial cycles, marking solstices, equinoxes, or other significant moments in the year? If so, what role did such alignments play in ritual practice or societal organization? Were these early urban planners simultaneously engineers, astronomers, and spiritual custodians? Evidence of ritual activity is present in burial chambers, ceremonial platforms, and artifacts unearthed at the site. The layering of bricks, occasional symbolic carvings, and careful placement of spaces imply intentionality and foresight. Yet the full meaning is elusive. What ceremonies were performed here, and how did they shape daily life for the inhabitants? Was the ziggurat a bridge between the terrestrial and the divine, or a practical hub for social administration disguised in ritual grandeur? And why, over time, did the site decline, leaving only partial mounds for modern observers to interpret? Visiting Tepe Sialk today, the terraces rise against the sky, their faded brickwork glowing in the desert sunlight. Shadows highlight the contours of platforms, stairways, and walls, offering glimpses of what was once a bustling center of human activity. Much like the stone circles of Senegambia, Sungai Batu, or Sambor Prei, the site communicates through structure rather than text, through form rather than language, leaving only material evidence to guide our understanding. Each brick, each terrace, and each alignment is a message from the past, partially obscured yet insistently present. Yet despite decades of study, many questions remain. How precisely did the builders manage the logistics of labor, materials, and construction across generations? Were astronomical, ritual and administrative functions integrated into the same structure. And how? How much knowledge of construction, ceremonial practice, and urban planning has been lost over 5 millennia? And what more might the site reveal about the early civilizations of the Iranian plateau, their worldview, and their technological capabilities? Tepesialk endures as a testament to human ingenuity, planning, and the intersection of ritual and urban life. Its mud brick terraces, layered foundations, and surrounding settlement speak of a society capable of both monumental labor and nuanced spatial organization. And yet, like the other ancient structures we have explored, from Senegambia to Sungai Batu, from Barnenez to Kokino, the full story remains tantalizingly out of reach. Standing atop the terraces, overlooking the plain, one is left to wonder, what secrets, knowledge, or practices are still encoded in these bricks, waiting for careful study, reflection, and imagination to bring them to light? From the mud brick terraces of Tepesialk, where early civilizations shaped monumental structures to honor the sacred, observe the heavens, and organize society, our journey now takes us far west and south across continents to the highlands of Peru. There, at an elevation of over 4,000 meters, stretches the vast plateau of Markawasi, a landscape punctuated by enormous stone formations whose weathered shapes seem both natural and deliberate. Shrouded in mist and sunlight, the plateau is at once alien and familiar. Jagged cliffs, monolithic boulders, and formations resembling human faces, animals, and geometric shapes emerge from the rocky terrain, evoking awe, curiosity, and a lingering sense of mystery. Markawasi has been recognized for centuries, first by indigenous Andean communities and later by explorers, archaeologists, and researchers who have attempted to understand the origins and purpose of its stones. While some formations are clearly the result of natural erosion, wind, rain, and seismic activity shaping granite over millions of years, others appear unusually regular, with angles, curves, and proportions that suggest deliberate human intervention. Were these colossal rocks carved, modified, or arranged with intention? Or are our minds projecting patterns onto nature, reading meaning into randomness? The ambiguity is what makes Markawasi both fascinating and enigmatic. The plateau's altitude and climate add to its otherworldly character. Thin air, dramatic skies, and temperature fluctuations create a setting where perception is heightened, shadows lengthen in unexpected ways, and the stones themselves seem alive. Explorers report the uncanny feeling of movement and presence among the formations, as though they are silent witnesses to events long past. Could these sensations reflect ritual significance assigned by ancient peoples? Or do they arise simply from the interplay of human psychology and a dramatic landscape? Even without definitive answers, the site commands attention, drawing both scholars and spiritual seekers alike. Some researchers suggest that Markawasi was a sacred site for pre-Incan or even earlier cultures, used for ceremonies, astronomical observation, or initiation rites. Certain formations appear aligned with sunrise, sunset, or solstitial events, hinting at a potential understanding of celestial cycles. Could ancient Andean communities have integrated landscape, stone, and sky into a form of observation, mapping, or ritual practice? And if so, what knowledge or cosmology guided these arrangements? The absence of written records leaves the interpretations open, allowing the stones themselves to speak in silence. The most striking feature of Markawasi is the uncanny resemblance of many rocks to recognizable shapes. Human faces with discernible eyes and noses, animals frozen in motion, and abstract geometric forms that suggest intentional design. Some formations seem to convey expression, emotion, or narrative, though whether these are purely natural coincidences or sculpted by human hands remains debated. Could these stones represent early attempts at monumental art, spiritual icons, or coded messages intended to survive the millennia? Or are they a testament to the mind's tendency to find meaning in natural irregularities, a psychological phenomenon known as pareidolia? Adding to the intrigue are smaller artifacts and ruins scattered across the plateau. Evidence of stone walls, circular enclosures, and carved terraces suggests human habitation or ceremonial activity, though the full extent and purpose remain uncertain. Did ancient Andean peoples inhabit Markawasi year-round, seasonally, or exclusively for ritual purposes? How did they transport materials, carve stone at such high altitudes, and coordinate activities across the plateau? The answers are fragmentary, leaving much to interpretation and speculation. Markawasi's geology itself contributes to the sense of wonder. Granite, resistant to erosion yet susceptible to cracking along joints and fissures, creates natural sculptures that can appear intentional. Yet the scale, distribution, and occasional symmetry of certain formations raise questions. Could ancient builders or sculptors have enhanced these natural features, subtly modifying what nature had already provided? If so, what cultural or spiritual imperatives drove such intervention? The plateau sits at the intersection of natural process and human imagination, creating a space where the line between nature and artifact is blurred. Walking among the formations, one senses a rhythm to the landscape, a dialogue between stone, sky, and observer. The play of sunlight and shadow, the alignment of boulders with distant mountains, and the occasional isolation of monumental forms create a space that feels intentionally curated, even if its original purpose is lost. Much like Tepesialk, the stone circles of Senegambia, or Sambor Prei, Markawasi communicates not through writing, but through form, scale, and spatial arrangement. Each rock, fissure, and plateau seems to whisper fragments of meaning, inviting contemplation and reflection. Yet for all its majesty, Markawasi retains its mysteries. Were these stones purely natural, enhanced by human hands, or deliberately sculpted as monuments, markers, or sacred icons? What knowledge, belief systems, or cosmologies guided the ancient peoples who visited, inhabited, or revered this high plateau? And what has been lost to wind, time, and human activity, leaving only fragments of intention visible to modern eyes? These questions persist, defying definitive answers while compelling us to explore further. Markawasi endures as a landscape of wonder and enigma. Its towering stones, intricate natural formations, and scattered ruins tell a story of human perception, ingenuity, and reverence for the land, yet one whose full meaning remains elusive. Standing atop the plateau, gazing across jagged horizons, one cannot help but ask, what secrets, knowledge, or spiritual practices remain encoded within these stones, waiting to be uncovered by those patient enough to observe, study, and imagine the world as those ancient peoples once did? The plateau invites both investigation and reflection, reminding us that even in the most familiar landscapes, mysteries endure, waiting to challenge our understanding and spark our curiosity. From the high-altitude granite plateau of Markawasi, where towering stone formations evoke both natural wonder and human mystery, our journey descends to the rolling plains beside Lake Umayo in the Peruvian Altiplano. Here, at over 3,800 meters above sea level, rise the imposing Chulpas, cylindrical stone towers of Silistani, built by the Pre-Inca Kola people. Against the backdrop of snow-capped mountains and the deep blue waters of the lake, these funerary monuments stand as silent sentinels, their precision-cut stonework and remarkable scale suggesting knowledge, intention, and reverence that defy simple explanation. The Chulpas of Silistani are funerary towers, constructed between the 12th and 15th centuries CE, predating Inca domination of the region. Each tower was designed to house the remains of elite individuals, their skeletal remains carefully placed within the upper chambers, while offerings of pottery, textiles, and other valuables accompanied the deceased. Yet the tower's construction transcends simple burial practice. Stones weighing several tons were transported, shaped, and meticulously fitted without mortar, creating structures that have withstood centuries of earthquakes, frost, and wind. How did the Kala achieve such engineering mastery at such high altitudes, where both climate and terrain present formidable challenges? Walking among the towers, the precision is striking. The stones are polygonal, carefully shaped to interlock perfectly, often with surfaces so smooth and joints so tight that not even a knife blade can fit between them. This level of craftsmanship suggests not only advanced technical knowledge but also a profound understanding of stability and structural mechanics. Did the builders possess sophisticated engineering principles passed down through generations, or were these techniques the product of trial, observation, and cultural tradition? And how were such massive stones quarried, transported, and raised into cylindrical formations, sometimes reaching heights of 12 meters or more? The placement of the cholpas adds an additional layer of intrigue. Many are aligned along ridges overlooking Lake Umeå, suggesting intentional orientation for visibility, symbolism, or astronomical significance. Could the positioning of the towers correspond to celestial events, solstices, or cardinal points, connecting the living with the cosmos and guiding ritual practice? Or were the alignments primarily territorial, asserting social and political dominance over surrounding lands? The landscape itself seems to participate in the design, with natural topography echoing the geometric regularity of the man-made structures. Inside the towers, the arrangement of human remains and offerings suggests both ritual precision and spiritual significance. Skeletons were often wrapped in textiles, accompanied by ceramic vessels, jewelry, and other grave goods, indicating belief in an afterlife and respect for ancestry. Yet questions remain. Why did the Kala choose cylindrical forms rather than rectangular or trapezoidal shapes common elsewhere in the Andes? Was the design purely practical, to protect the remains from environmental forces and animals, or symbolic, encoding cosmological or spiritual ideas now lost to history? The interplay between function and symbolism is tantalizingly ambiguous. The scale of Silistani also speaks to societal organization. The construction of multiple towers across the site would have required coordinated labor, specialized skills, and resource management. How was this achieved within pre-Inca society, without written records or advanced machinery? And what motivated the expenditure of such energy? Was it the assertion of status, the veneration of ancestors, or a broader spiritual or communal imperative? The enduring presence of these towers suggests that the act of construction itself may have been as important as the final monument. Silistani's environment amplifies the mystery. The high-altitude plains, exposed to wind, sun, and sudden storms, create an atmosphere of isolation and solemnity. From a distance, the towers appear as silhouettes against the horizon, evoking a sense of timeless guardianship. Up close, the smooth surfaces and precise joins provoke wonder. Each stone tells a story of labor, skill, and intention. Yet the narrative remains largely hidden, encoded in the material itself rather than recorded in words. Much like Markawasi, Sungai Batu, or Tepe Sialk, the site communicates through physical form, spatial arrangement, and enduring craftsmanship. Yet for all we can observe, questions persist. How were the towers aligned so deliberately with the terrain and perhaps even celestial patterns? Did the construction techniques evolve over centuries, or were they standardized early in Kala society? And what cultural or spiritual practices surrounded the building and use of these towers, now lost to time? Every answer seems to lead to further inquiry, highlighting the depth of human ingenuity and the elusiveness of our understanding. Standing amidst Silistani, gazing across the lake and toward distant peaks, one cannot help but feel the presence of a civilization whose knowledge and reverence have endured far longer than its written record. The towers, rising from the earth with geometric precision, encapsulate the intersection of engineering, ritual, and landscape. And yet, like so many of the ancient structures we have explored, from Marcahuasi's mysterious boulders to Tepe Sialk's mud brick terraces, the full meaning remains tantalizingly out of reach. One is left to wonder what knowledge, ritual, or world-view is encoded in these stones, and what might remain undiscovered, waiting to reveal the secrets of a society both distant in time and intimately human in ambition. From the windswept plains and high-altitude towers of Silistani, where cylindrical stone chulpas stand as silent witnesses to pre-Inca beliefs and ingenuity, our journey now turns across the Atlantic to the rugged western edge of Europe. On the Aran Islands, perched dramatically on steep cliffs above the Atlantic Ocean, sits Dùn Aonghasa, a prehistoric hill fort whose stone walls cling to the precipice as if defying gravity. The site is both commanding and fragile, overlooking jagged shores and the relentless sea, its massive stone ramparts rising from the landscape like a fortress frozen in time, challenging our understanding of ancient construction, purpose, and human audacity. Dùn Aonghasa is believed to date back to the late Bronze Age or early Iron Age, approximately 1100 to 500 BCE, although the site may have been in use and modified over many centuries. The fort occupies the summit of Inishmore, the largest of the Aran Islands, and is remarkable not only for its dramatic location but also for the scale and precision of its concentric dry stone walls. The outermost wall curves along the cliff edge, hugging the natural contour of the land, while inner walls form smaller, circular enclosures. From above, the fort resembles a series of protective layers, each wall guarding the one within. How did these builders, without mortar or modern machinery, construct such formidable structures atop a cliff, in a location battered by wind, rain, and Atlantic storms? Walking the site, one is struck by the enormity of the stones and the ingenuity of their placement. Massive boulders, some weighing several tons, are carefully arranged to create both stability and defensibility. Dry stone construction requires meticulous attention to balance, interlocking, and weight distribution. Yet the walls have endured millennia with remarkably little collapse. Were these walls built purely for defense, or do they serve additional ceremonial, social, or symbolic purposes? The question lingers, as the design hints at both practical fortification and deliberate aesthetic or ritual intention. The fort's location amplifies its mystery. Positioned atop a cliff with sheer drops to the ocean below, Dùn Aonghasa dominates the surrounding landscape. Visibility is nearly 360 degrees, allowing anyone within to observe approaching ships, weather, or potential adversaries. Yet, why select such an exposed, seemingly precarious site, where construction would have been difficult and survival challenging? Could the choice have been as much symbolic as practical, an assertion of power, a connection to the horizon, or a ritual statement echoing the liminal space between land and sea? The imposing position invites speculation on how the builders perceived their environment and their relationship to the natural world. Archaeological excavations have revealed evidence of habitation, including remnants of circular stone huts, hearths, and artifacts, suggesting that Dùn Aonghasa was more than a military installation. It functioned as a settlement, a refuge, and potentially a ceremonial center. Yet much remains unexplained. How did the inhabitants organize labor and resources to move and shape the enormous stones? Were specialized techniques or communal rituals employed to manage such monumental construction? and what motivated repeated expansion or modification over centuries, as evidenced by multiple concentric walls and terraces. Some researchers have suggested astronomical or cosmological significance in the fort's design. The circular enclosures, alignment of gateways, and orientation relative to the rising and setting sun may have allowed the inhabitants to track seasonal changes, mark solstices, or perform rituals tied to agricultural or spiritual cycles. Could Dùn Aonghasa have served as both a fort and a celestial observatory, integrating defense, social organization, and cosmic awareness into a single monumental landscape? The possibility remains tantalizing, though elusive, as the site offers only material traces and spatial relationships to guide interpretation. Walking along the cliff-edge walls, one is also struck by the interplay between human construction and natural erosion. Waves crash hundreds of feet below, wind carves the stone and rain smooths the surfaces, yet the fort endures. The juxtaposition of permanence and fragility mirrors the duality of Dùn Aonghasa itself, a human-made monument confronting elemental forces, asserting presence in an environment that could easily reclaim it. How much of the original fort has been lost to centuries of weathering, and what secrets remain buried beneath soil, rubble, and tidal debris? Dùn Aonghasa is not only a testament to human skill, but also to imagination and daring. The sheer audacity of building massive stone walls on a cliff's edge suggests a society deeply attuned to its landscape, capable of coordinated labor, architectural understanding, and cultural vision. Yet the absence of written records leaves these insights incomplete, and the fort's full purpose remains a matter of debate. Was it primarily defensive, symbolic, ceremonial, residential, or some combination of all? Could the fort's dramatic placement have been designed to inspire awe, to mark territory, or to serve as a spiritual conduit connecting earth and sky? Standing atop the walls, gazing across the Atlantic to the horizon, one senses both the isolation and intentionality of the builders. The interplay of land, sea, stone, and sky conveys a message of human ambition, cultural expression, and reverence for place, yet its precise meaning remains hidden. Much like Silistani, Marcahuasi, or Tepe Sialk, Dùn Aonghasa communicates through scale, spatial arrangement, and material presence, rather than through words. Each stone, each curve of the wall, and each carefully placed gateway speaks to ingenuity and intent, even as the specifics of that intent elude us. For all its grandeur, Dùn Aonghasa leaves us with questions. How were such massive stones transported and precisely positioned on a cliff edge? What cultural, spiritual, or strategic purposes guided construction over generations? And what practices, ceremonies, or knowledge associated with this place have been lost to time? The fort endures as a monument to human daring and imagination, inviting us to contemplate the capabilities, beliefs, and aspirations of a society that dared to build at the edge of the world. Standing there, with wind in your face and ocean below, one cannot help but wonder, what secrets remain hidden in these walls, waiting to be revealed to those patient enough to study, explore, and reflect upon the enduring ingenuity of our ancestors? From the windswept cliffs of Dùn Aonghasa, where pre-Celtic communities etched their presence into the Atlantic horizon, our journey now crosses the Mediterranean to the rugged island of Sardinia, Italy. Here, scattered across hills, valleys, and coastal plains, rise the enigmatic Nuraghe, towering stone structures that have fascinated scholars, locals, and travelers for centuries. Their truncated cones, built from massive volcanic and limestone blocks without mortar, dominate the landscape, evoking both the ingenuity and the mystery of the Nuragic civilization that thrived here over 3,000 years ago. In the golden light of dawn, these towers appear almost alive, their silhouettes striking against rolling hills and distant seas, speaking in silence of an ancient people whose knowledge and purpose remain only partially understood. The Nuraghe are estimated to date from the Bronze Age, roughly between 1800 and 500 BCE, though some may be even older. Over 7,000 have been identified across Sardinia, ranging from simple single-tower constructions to complex multi-level fortresses with concentric walls, internal chambers, and intricate passageways. Their design is both functional and enigmatic. Massive stones are carefully placed, sometimes weighing several tons, forming towers up to 20 meters tall. How did Bronze Age societies, lacking modern machinery, quarry, transport, and precisely fit these stones into such enduring structures? The answer likely combines ingenuity, communal labor, and a sophisticated understanding of stonework, yet much about their construction defies simple explanation. Walking among these towers today, one is struck by their geometric precision. The Nuraghe exhibit circular plans, sometimes with multiple concentric walls or internal chambers accessed by narrow passageways. Some include subterranean rooms, secret staircases, and complex superstructures, all built without mortar yet enduring for millennia. Could these architectural choices have been purely defensive, intended to repel enemies and protect inhabitants? Or might they reflect ceremonial, astronomical, or social purposes, encoded in design and orientation? The ambiguity invites reflection, as the structures seem to operate on multiple levels, functional, symbolic, and possibly ritualistic, simultaneously. The placement of the Nuraghe across the Sardinian landscape also raises compelling questions. Many are located on hilltops or promontories, offering sweeping views of surrounding plains, rivers, or coastlines. Such positioning suggests strategic awareness, perhaps for defense, territorial control, or signaling between settlements. Yet others cluster in valleys or near water sources, indicating that location was also informed by access to resources and community organization. Was the siting of each Nuraghe deliberate, integrating landscape, visibility, and environmental awareness into a coherent territorial network? And if so, what social or cultural knowledge guided this spatial planning across an entire island? Inside the towers, the ingenuity of design continues to fascinate. Corbelled ceilings, internal staircases, and small chambers suggest an understanding of structural mechanics that allowed for remarkable stability. Some Nuraghe feature multiple levels connected by steep stairs, while others incorporate small niches and platforms whose purpose is unclear. Were these spaces purely functional, used for storage, habitation, or defense? Or did they hold symbolic meaning, serving as sacred spaces, communal halls, or observation points aligned with celestial events? Archaeological evidence, pottery, tools, and ritual objects provides hints but leaves as many questions as answers. Beyond their construction and placement, the Nuraghe hint at a society both complex and highly organized. Building even a single tower would have required careful planning, division of labor, and transmission of specialized knowledge across generations. The existence of thousands of towers across Sardinia suggests a civilization capable of long-term coordination and cultural continuity. Yet the Nuraghic people left no written records. How did they preserve and pass down architectural, social, and possibly astronomical knowledge? Were these towers memorials, defensive bastions, or part of a broader system connecting settlements, trade routes, and ritual centers? The Nuraghe also invite speculation about their possible astronomical or cosmological significance. Some towers appear aligned with solstices, lunar cycles, or prominent landscape features, hinting at observational awareness and ritual practice. Were these ancient architects tracking celestial events to regulate agricultural or ceremonial calendars? Or were the alignments symbolic, a means of harmonizing human construction with the cycles of the heavens? Without definitive evidence, the towers continue to speak through stone alone, their meaning partially hidden and tantalizingly open to interpretation. Walking among the Nuraghe today, the silence is profound. Stones weathered by wind, rain, and centuries of human activity seem to hold memories of a vanished civilization. Much like Dùn Aonghasa, Silistani, or Markawasi, the structures communicate through spatial arrangement, scale, and enduring craftsmanship rather than written language. The experience evokes a sense of timelessness, where human ambition meets landscape, labor, and vision. Each tower, each wall, each carefully fitted stone embodies knowledge, skill, and perhaps even a form of cultural or spiritual expression that modern eyes can only partially grasp. And yet, for all their magnitude and precision, the Nuraghe retain their mysteries. How exactly were these towers built with such technical mastery? What purposes, defensive, ceremonial, social, or astronomical, did they serve, and were these functions integrated or distinct? How did the Nuraghic people maintain such a widespread network of towers over centuries? And what aspects of their civilization, knowledge, and belief remain forever hidden within these enduring stones? The Nuraghe endure as a monument to ingenuity, resilience, and mystery. Their massive towers, intricate internal design, and strategic placement across Sardinia testify to a society capable of remarkable engineering, planning, and cultural expression. Yet, like the other ancient structures we have explored, from Silistani's cliffside chulpas to Markawasi's granite plateau, from Tepe Sialk's terraces to Dùn Aonghasa's cliff fortifications, their full story remains elusive. Standing among these stones, one is compelled to ask, what secrets, practices, or knowledge remain encoded here, waiting for those patient enough to observe, study, and wonder at the skill and imagination of our ancient ancestors? From the rugged hills and monumental towers of Sardinia, where the Nuraghe rise like sentinels of Bronze Age ingenuity, our journey crosses the Tyrrhenian Sea to the island of Corsica. Here, amid rolling granite hills, dense maquis shrublands, and windswept ridges, lie the dolmen clusters, prehistoric stone tombs whose purpose and construction continue to intrigue scholars and visitors alike. Each dolmen, composed of massive upright stones capped by horizontal slabs, seems at once primitive and sophisticated, blending seamlessly into the natural landscape while simultaneously asserting human presence across a terrain that is as beautiful as it is unforgiving. The dolmens of Corsica are believed to date from the late Neolithic to the early Bronze Age, roughly between 3,500 and 2000 BCE. Spread across the island in clusters, often near hilltops or elevated plains, these structures served as burial sites, ceremonial spaces, and possibly markers of territory or social significance. Yet despite extensive study, many questions remain. How did prehistoric communities move and position stones weighing several tons without modern tools or machinery? And why choose these particular sites, often exposed to the harsh Mediterranean wind and surrounded by rugged terrain, to build monuments that would endure for millennia? Walking among the dolmens today, one is struck by their simplicity and precision. Upright orthostats are placed carefully to support immense capstones, creating chambers that were likely used to house the remains of important individuals. Some clusters form linear arrangements, others circular or semicircular patterns, suggesting regional or temporal variation in design. Could these arrangements reflect social hierarchies, astronomical observation, or ritual pathways? And how much of the placement reflects practical engineering considerations versus symbolic or cosmological intention? The ambiguity is part of what gives these ancient stones their enduring allure. Archaeological excavations have revealed pottery, bone fragments, and tools within many of the dolmens, indicating complex funerary practices. Some contain multiple burials over time, suggesting that these sites were reused and maintained by successive generations. Were these dolmens designed as family tombs, communal spaces, or monuments honoring leaders? And what beliefs guided the choice of offerings, the positioning of bodies, and the ongoing care of the sites? Each dolmen, though constructed from inanimate stone, carries the weight of social memory, spiritual practice, and cultural continuity. The sheer logistics of construction are staggering. Stones were quarried, transported over uneven terrain, and lifted into precise positions with seemingly minimal technology. Did these early builders rely on sophisticated knowledge of leverage, rope, and inclined planes? Or were the techniques passed down through ritualized communal practice, embedded in collective memory rather than formal instruction? And if these constructions were widespread, as the number of dolmen clusters suggests, what does that imply about the organization, communication, and capabilities of these prehistoric communities? Some researchers have speculated about potential astronomical alignments. Certain dolmens appear oriented toward the rising or setting sun, or aligned with prominent landscape features such as mountains or valleys. Could these orientations mark solstices, equinoxes, or other seasonal events, integrating practical calendrical observation with ritual significance? Or are these alignments coincidental, the result of topography and convenience rather than intentional design? The lack of written records leaves room for interpretation, forcing us to rely on subtle material clues and careful observation. The natural environment of Corsica adds a layer of drama and mystery to the dolmens. Granite outcrops, gorges, and high ridges dominate the landscape, creating isolated vantage points from which one can survey the surrounding valleys. Fog and cloud drift across the hills, shadows stretching long across capstones, lending the dolmens an almost otherworldly aura. Like the Nuraghe towers of Sardinia, these stones seem to occupy a liminal space between human ambition and natural endurance, marking the landscape with structures that speak to intention, effort, and cultural identity. Despite their age, the dolmens remain remarkably evocative. They invite contemplation of human ingenuity, social organization, and spiritual practice in a world far removed from our own. Each stone, each chamber, and each cluster is a message from the past, partially obscured but insistently present. The structures command attention not through decoration or inscription, but through scale, placement, and endurance, a silent narrative that challenges our assumptions about prehistoric societies. Yet, for all their presence, many questions remain unanswered. Why were these particular stones chosen and positioned as they were? What rituals or ceremonies accompanied their construction and use? How did prehistoric Corsicans maintain knowledge of construction, alignment, and ritual across generations? And what else might the landscape conceal, waiting to reveal hidden patterns, unexcavated chambers, or clues to lost traditions? The dolmens of Corsica endure as monuments to human ambition, ingenuity, and the mysterious impulse to leave a lasting mark on the landscape. They speak to a civilization capable of remarkable technical skill and cultural sophistication, yet whose worldview and knowledge remain largely inaccessible to us. Much like the Nuraghe of Sardinia, the Chulpas of Silistani, or the cliffside fort of Dùn Aonghasa, these stones invite reflection, contemplation, and wonder. Standing among them, one cannot help but ask, what secrets remain encoded in these ancient arrangements, waiting for patient observation, careful study, and an openness to the mysteries of the distant past? From the granite dolmens of Corsica, where prehistoric communities marked their presence across windswept ridges and hillsides, our journey continues along the Iberian Peninsula to the Galician coast of Spain. There, atop a rocky promontory overlooking the Minho River and the Atlantic beyond, lies the ancient hill fort of Castro de Santa Trega. The site commands immediate attention, Circular stone houses cluster across terraced slopes, while defensive walls curve naturally with the contours of the hill, seemingly blending construction with landscape. Clouds drift low over the summit, and the Atlantic breeze carries the scent of salt and fog, imbuing the site with a palpable sense of isolation and antiquity. Castro de Santa Trega is a remarkable example of a Castro culture settlement, thought to have thrived between the late Bronze Age and the early Iron Age, roughly between 1000 BCE and the Roman conquest. The site encompasses hundreds of round stone dwellings, streets, and fortified walls, revealing an extraordinary level of social organization and architectural knowledge for its time. Each circular home, carefully constructed with stone bases and often conical thatched roofs, speaks to a society deeply attuned to both its environment and communal needs. Yet, for all its apparent clarity as a settlement, the questions it provokes are subtle, lingering, and profoundly compelling. Walking through the ruins, one notices the careful alignment of streets and houses along natural terraces, suggesting a deliberate understanding of drainage, stability, and spatial planning. The largest houses, often situated near the highest terraces, may have belonged to leaders or prominent families, hinting at social stratification. Yet beyond practical considerations, the circular form of the dwellings, the arrangement of walls, and the careful orientation toward natural features, valleys, river bends, and distant mountains, suggest an aesthetic, symbolic, or even spiritual dimension. Why circular rather than rectangular? Were these forms purely functional, or did they carry cosmological or ritual significance? Defensive features dominate certain parts of the settlement. Massive stone ramparts curve along the hill's edges, reinforced by dry stone terraces and strategically placed watchpoints. From these walls, inhabitants would have been able to survey the surrounding land and waterways for miles, detecting approaching threats or trading vessels. Yet the fortifications are as curious as they are imposing. Some walls are remarkably thick, while others appear almost ceremonial, creating layered spaces that blend defense with display. Were these structures primarily practical, or did they also serve to project power, delineate sacred spaces, or guide ritual processions? The duality of purpose, the practical and the symbolic, remains elusive. Archaeological excavations have revealed evidence of domestic life, craft production, and ritual practice within the Castro. Pottery fragments, stone tools, and occasional metalwork suggest a community engaged in daily sustenance, trade, and artistry. In some of the larger houses, small hearths and storage areas imply extended family or communal living, while open courtyards may have facilitated gatherings or ceremonial events. Yet much about the social and spiritual life of Santa Trega remains unknown. How did inhabitants maintain cohesion, manage resources, or transmit knowledge over generations? What rituals or beliefs guided the placement of dwellings, walls, and communal spaces? The site's elevated position amplifies its dramatic presence and sense of mystery. From the summit, the river meanders to the ocean, while the surrounding hills rise and fall in a rhythm of shadows and light. The horizon stretches in every direction, offering a vantage both commanding and contemplative. Could the choice of location reflect not only strategic necessity, but also cosmological awareness, a desire to harmonize human life with the rhythms of land, sky, and sea? And if so, what principles guided this alignment, now lost to millennia of oral tradition and cultural transformation? One of the most compelling enigmas of Castro de Santa Trega is the interplay between permanence and ephemerality. Stone walls endure, weathered by centuries of Atlantic storms, while organic elements, roofs, wooden platforms, thatch, have vanished. The contrast leaves us with partial narratives. The physical scaffolding of settlement survives, but the intangible dimensions, ritual practice, belief systems, and social dynamics remain elusive. Much like the dolmens of Corsica, the Nuraghe of Sardinia, or Dùn Aonghasa in Ireland, the site communicates in the language of form, orientation, and material presence, inviting interpretation and reflection rather than providing definitive answers. The scale and complexity of Santa Trega also highlight the organizational capabilities of its builders. Coordinating labor, quarrying and shaping stone, designing roads and terraces, all without written records or modern technology, speaks to a sophisticated understanding of engineering, planning, and social cooperation. Yet the details of construction techniques, knowledge transfer, and decision-making processes remain a matter of speculation. Were specialized guilds or families responsible for different aspects of construction? Was knowledge passed orally through ritual, apprenticeship, or communal practice? These questions underscore the depth of ingenuity possessed by these ancient communities. As one moves along the terraces and walls, peering into circular dwellings and open plazas, the mind naturally seeks patterns and stories. Who inhabited these spaces? What daily routines and ceremonies took place here? And how did these people perceive their world? And perhaps, most intriguingly, what inspired them to create a settlement that is both defensible and remarkably integrated with the landscape, a place where utility, social structure, and possibly spirituality converge? Castro de Santa Trega endures as a testament to human skill, vision, and mystery. Its stone walls and circular homes continue to withstand the elements, offering glimpses into a society capable of remarkable architectural and social sophistication. Yet, like so many ancient sites we have explored, from Corsica's dolmens to Sardinia's Nuraghe, from Marcowassi's enigmatic boulders to Dùn Aonghasa's cliffside fortifications, the full story remains hidden, obscured by centuries of history. Standing amidst the terraces, gazing out over the river and the ocean beyond, one cannot help but ask, what secrets, knowledge, or beliefs remain embedded in these stones, waiting for discovery by those who seek to understand the lives and minds of people long gone? Nestled deep within the lush emerald expanse of Brazil's Amazon rainforest lies a landscape that has remained largely untouched by modern civilization. Here, along the banks of the Amazon River and its tributaries, the Monte Alegre rock shelters emerge from the dense foliage like ancient whispers frozen in stone. Jagged cliffs, painted in earthy reds, ochres, and deep charcoal blacks, rise abruptly from the forest floor, their surfaces etched with a labyrinth of lines and shapes that defy easy understanding. The air is thick with humidity, and the calls of distant wildlife punctuate the silence, creating an atmosphere of both serenity and solemnity. One can almost feel the weight of millennia pressing down from the cliffs, as though time itself has chosen to linger here. At first glance, these shelters may appear as mere caverns carved by the forces of nature. Yet step closer, and the walls reveal something profoundly human. The oldest known rock art in the Amazon, some dating back more than 13,000 years. The paintings are astonishing in their clarity and complexity, geometric patterns, swirling lines, and enigmatic symbols that suggest a deep, intuitive understanding of the world by the people who created them. Depictions of animals, hunting scenes, and abstract shapes fill the space, yet many remain indecipherable, as if they were intended to convey meanings beyond language. Why did these ancient artists choose these specific forms? And what did these images mean to them in a world so vastly different from ours? Archaeologists have long studied Monte Alegre, attempting to unravel its secrets through careful excavation and analysis. Tools, pottery fragments, and evidence of hearths have been discovered, pointing to the shelter's use as habitation sites, perhaps as seasonal encampments or sacred spaces. The sheer scale of the paintings, some of which span several meters across, suggests coordinated effort and shared knowledge, a culture with a sophisticated social structure capable of complex artistic expression. Yet, while mainstream archaeology offers valuable insights, it cannot answer all the questions. How did these early inhabitants sustain themselves so deep in the rainforest? What prompted such a prolific outpouring of symbolic art when survival alone would seem to demand every ounce of energy be devoted to the basics of life? The mystery deepens when we consider the precision and consistency of some of the geometric patterns. Circles within circles, intricate grids, and interlocking shapes hint at a symbolic or mathematical understanding that resonates even today. Some researchers propose that these patterns might have served as maps, calendars, or ritualistic guides, encoding knowledge about the stars, seasons, or the cycles of the river. Yet, no definitive decoding has ever been achieved. What knowledge did these shapes encode, and who was able to read them? Could they represent a system of thought lost to time, an intelligence that communicated through symbols rather than words? As we examine the art more closely, one cannot ignore the occasional figure that seems almost otherworldly. Human-like forms with elongated limbs, eyes rendered as hollow orbs, or abstracted faces that defy human anatomy appear sporadically among the more conventional images. Some anthropologists suggest these may reflect shamanistic visions, spiritual experiences induced through trance or ritual. Others remain more speculative, proposing that the imagery hints at encounters with unknown entities or forces. There is no evidence to confirm such theories, yet the art undeniably evokes a sense of something beyond ordinary human experience, a glimpse into a worldview both ancient and alien to our own. Adding another layer of intrigue is the sheer scale of Monte Alegre itself. The rock shelters are not isolated. They form part of an extensive network of caves and cliff faces stretching across the region. Some of these sites are hidden behind dense vegetation or perched atop seemingly inaccessible cliffs, suggesting that the creators had both the means and the motivation to reach locations that are challenging even by today's standards. How did they navigate these terrains with such ease? Were these locations chosen for practical reasons, protection, water access, or vantage points? Or did they hold spiritual or astronomical significance that has since been forgotten? Scientific dating methods have provided astonishing revelations. Carbon dating of charcoal used in the paintings indicates human presence in Monte Alegre long before the development of agriculture in the region. This challenges earlier assumptions about the capabilities of hunter-gatherer societies in the Amazon, forcing a re-evaluation of how complex these early communities truly were. They were not simply surviving, they were creating, recording, and perhaps even teaching through art. But if such sophistication existed so long ago, what caused this culture to vanish, leaving behind only these silent stone canvases? Local legends add an additional enigmatic layer. Indigenous communities, whose ancestors may have walked these very paths, speak of sacred places within the cliffs, imbued with spiritual power and knowledge. They warn that some areas should not be disturbed, that the spirits of the ancestors still watch over them. Whether these tales are symbolic or literal, they suggest a continuity of human reverence for these spaces that stretches back thousands of years. Could there be wisdom embedded in these legends, hints of a relationship between humans and this landscape that modern archaeology has yet to grasp? Despite decades of study, many aspects of Monte Alegre remain baffling. Why do certain symbols recur across distant shelters, almost as if a shared language or cultural memory persisted across generations and geography? Some images appear to depict astronomical events, alignments of stars, eclipses, or solar cycles, but the interpretations are often tentative, leaving room for wonder. How did people, living in isolation from other early civilizations, acquire such knowledge? Were these observations purely practical, tied to hunting and agriculture? Or did they reflect a more profound cosmological understanding? Even the physical act of painting raises questions. The pigments used, derived from minerals, plants, and charcoal, remain remarkably vivid after millennia, a testament to the skill and ingenuity of the artists. Yet, applying these pigments to high, inaccessible walls and ceilings would have required scaffolding, tools, and planning. This implies a level of societal coordination and foresight that challenges conventional notions of what early Amazonian communities could achieve. Was this artistic endeavor purely functional, a communal ritual, or something else entirely? Perhaps an expression of belief, a language of its own, or a bridge to worlds we no longer understand. As sunlight filters through the gaps in the foliage, casting shifting patterns on the painted walls, one cannot help but feel a profound sense of connection and disorientation. The images, both familiar and strange, whisper of lives once lived, of thoughts and visions that remain only partially accessible. They provoke questions that science cannot yet answer, inviting us to confront the limits of our knowledge and the vastness of human imagination. Monte Alegre is more than a series of rock shelters. It is a dialogue across time. Every mark, every curve, every geometric pattern challenges us to consider what it means to be human, what we leave behind, and how civilizations can rise and disappear, leaving only echoes etched in stone. And yet, for all that has been uncovered, so much remains obscured. What lies deeper within these cliffs? What stories, rituals, or secrets have yet to be revealed? The shelters do not surrender their mysteries easily, and perhaps that is their greatest power. A silent testament to the enduring enigma of our past, forever inviting us to wonder, question, and explore.